I am Eduardo Takamori, Financial and Relations with Investors Officer. It's an honor to be here with you today for the 18th within EGIE, which is our Investor Day. It is a hybrid event. There will be 70 people here face-to-face and also online. And this is a symbolic place to be. This is a fantastic place. 25 years ago, we had two important events in our history. This is the 25th year of being listed in the stock exchange, and the year of the privatization of the company in Rio de Janeiro, and Gerasul is now part of the EGIE group, and here we are. Before we go into the agenda, we have some important notice. We have a simultaneous translation into English and also sign language. Okay. The recording will be available at the website engie.com.br/investidores. We also have time for Q&A. We can interact here in the audience. We will have the mic to pose your questions, and also people who are online, you can send your questions on the chat on the platform. And we also have journalists, and they can assess our questions with the PR at EGIE. Any statements that can be made during this event regarding the perspectives of the company should be used as predictions depending on the economy of the country, regulations of the electric system. Therefore, those are subject to changes. And this event will depend on your questions and your interaction, whether here in the audience or online. We have a free Wi-Fi access, so you just register, you can have free access to internet. And this is the agenda now for the day. I will show you. Okay, here we go. We have an introduction by Eduardo Satamini, the CEO of the company. He will talk about the present and the future. And then Mauricio Ber will talk. He's the head of the board of directors of EGIE Brazil. He will talk about the group and the strategy and global perspectives. And then we will have three different panels. The first is the new business implementation and ESG. Then we have a coffee break, and then two additional panels. One is specific for TAG, and the last panel will be about the regulatory environment and sales. And then final messages and closing. And in order to start the day, and we would like to remind our history and talk about the future, now I call to the floor our CEO, Eduardo Satamini, to talk about this 25 years of history. Satamini, you have the floor. Thank you, Eduardo. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you. This edition of the Inside EGIE, we have had many events like this, more than 10 for sure, 18 events like this since the follow-on, which took place in 2005. It's important to have you here. Your interaction is necessary so we can have an event that is more dynamic. And I would like to remind you to pose your questions. So request the mic so our audience can hear you online as well. Throughout these 25 years as a private company, we have evolved from a generator park of 3.7 gigawatts to 8.2 gigawatts of own installed capacity, 100% renewable. And this corresponds to an increase of 76 plants in 25 years. We have been through different governments, volatility in the business, and regulations of the electric industry. And we continue to grow with hard work, discipline, and all movements of the market. We have consolidated our hydropower farm. We are aware of new technologies. We have repositioned our business to lead the electric transition in the country. In particular, with the transmission, we also left the coal business, and we have made important acquisitions in order to make the results of the company to grow forever. And we continue to do this. Some of you have participated in this history from day one. Most of you have been with us only recently. So we went from a base of 2,000 shareholders in 1998 to more than 16,000 in 2016. And now we are more than 300,000 investors. These are investors that believe in our work and increase our responsibility in this company, which is one of the 30 biggest companies listed in the Stock Exchange of Brazil. For 25 years, the company shares valued more than 12,000% compared to 4,000 of the IEE and 100,000 of the Ibovespa. And not overnight that will build these good results. And when I took the position of CEO, I had the privilege to work with qualified officers in this company and to build the alignment with high-level directors to define the directives of the company, anticipate risks, plan the future, and follow up the execution of our strategy. Thanks to the trust of our controller, the EGIE Group, in the financial market, we were able to invest 25 billion from 2016 and 2022, in particular in the generation of renewable energies with wind and photovoltaic energy, and also the construction of the infrastructure that is necessary for Brazil to distribute the energy. The energy that we produce is clean and to the main urban centers. And within this period, we have distributed more than 14 billion in dividends to the shareholders. Looking to the future, we have more additional 14 billion from 23 to 25 with a strategy based in our purpose to lead Brazil's energy transition in a profitable way. In order to be in the forefront of the electric sector, we must ensure that we have competitiveness in order to grow and generate value to all stakeholders. And we'll continue to do this in compliance with the highest standards. And this includes our presence in the new market, in the ICE and the ICO2 of B3, establishment of best practice of managing of ESG aspects in our business. For me, as CEO of ENGIE Brazil Energy, this is a virtuous cycle to ensure good results to shareholders. And this qualifies us to have a bold purpose and pursue this in the management and operation of our assets. And thus, with ESG all around in what we do, we engage people, customers, and employees to accelerate the energy transition with us. You know the ENGIE numbers, you follow them up on a quarterly basis, and you know our balance sheets. So now you have the opportunity to know in detail the distinctive aspects of our operation, how we do business. So pay attention to everything that is not in the accounting books and take this moment, this opportunity to know our company in detail. That's all, folks. So I wish you good energy. So I hope this is a clarifying and pleasant moment for all of us. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for this opening remarks, Satamini. Now the chairman of our board of directors, Mauricio Ber. Thank you, Takamori, Satamini. It's good to be here with you today. Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here 25 years after the privatization of Gerasul in 2008. And now 25 years we are listed in the market. We have the satisfaction of being a company that is truly guided by a purpose. And our purpose is to act, to accelerate the energy transition, to have a carbon neutral society by reducing energy and providing sustainable solutions. Our purpose encompasses the company, customer, and shareholders, and also the economic development with a positive impact to people and the planet. For the shareholders of ENGIE Brazil that are gathered here, and also the controller of the company, it is important to monitor how the company responds to that call and contributes to the decarbonization of customers, increasing sustainability standards and promoting a fair energy transition by hearing all the stakeholders. The ENGIE Group has here in Brazil as one of the key countries. You know how Brazil started as a small country, a small market, but now we are the second largest market for the company. Of course, France is the main country where the company has its headquarters, but Brazil is now not only the biggest contribution as a country, but also the highest potential for growth. And we put so much hope in Brazil. The group wants to achieve 50 gigawatts of installed capacity in renewable energy by 2025. And Brazil is aware of that. And we want to achieve 80 gigawatts in 2030. And the contribution of ENGIE Brazil will be critical to achieve this strategic purpose that will be added to other global initiatives of the group, as we have done in other countries like the US. And we also have investments here in Chile, here in Latin America, and Peru as well, and also in Australia. And we are thinking in batteries, green hydrogen, and other technologies. This is a future vision, but sometimes we are at the very beginning. And we start small and we will get there, as it happened here in Brazil. We would have only hydropower plants here in Brazil, but now we have a supplementary portfolio with wind and also solar energy. And in this context, we have not only installed capacity in addition to decarbonization and generation of energy, we also have, we are well advanced in other non-financial purposes, like the reduction in the emission of greenhouse gases, as we are totally renewable right now, and the progress regarding inclusion and equity and diversity, in which we have many initiatives, and ENGIE Brazil Energy sets an example to the global group. So we have affirmative actions here in Brazil to attract more diversity, gender, and in many other aspects. And we want to make Brazil to become creator of the culture, so we can help the global group to develop in other regions of the world. So many Brazilians are seeing opportunities to work in other activities of the group. as a strategy and connection with our country here, Brazil, we have two main activities of the group, which is renewable energy and also infrastructure, transmission lines, in which we have been investing now, and also TAG, which is now 4 years. And it is a good vector for growth for the group. We have always had the vision that the gas industry is important, and this is an industry that will allow for the energy transition to be fair and adequate in Brazil. Sustainability of the financial results of the company is an encompassing one, and it contemplates the opening to new aspects and to guide the decisions and resources the best way. This is what guides us. And therefore, we believe that we can capture opportunities that can promote energy transition as a result projected by the group. And now, finally, I want to invite you all to engage and operate with us together. So let's act together to promote a fair energy transition. And now we will play now our institutional movie. You will see our motto there. And then there we will call everyone to act together. That's the name of the video. Let's act together. So we must act collectively. We must take action and embark in this objective. So I would like to wish you all a good event. And I hope this is an opportunity to exchange knowledge. So please ask. We are here open to answer, and we'll be transparent with you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mauricio. And now, finally, I want to invite you to engage, and let's act together to promote a fair energy transition. Now we will play the institutional video now. So let's act together. That's the name of the video.
Na ENGIE, agimos para construir o mundo de baixo carbono do amanhã. Como grupo líder global em energia, operamos em 31 países e somos pioneiros da transição energética. Temos o compromisso com um mundo de baixo carbono para nós, nossos clientes e para as futuras gerações. No Brasil, atuamos em geração, transmissão e comercialização de energia, transporte de gás natural e soluções energéticas e de engenharia para indústrias e cidades. Nós da ENGIE agimos. Agimos para conectar os brasileiros à energia renovável, uma energia neutra em carbono. Nós da ENGIE criamos soluções inovadoras, digitais, seguras e pioneiras, que descarbonizam e garantem a energia do amanhã. Nós da ENGIE aceleramos nossos esforços coletivos para alcançar uma economia neutra em carbono. Nós da ENGIE agimos juntos, com nossos fornecedores e clientes para o uso responsável de recursos naturais. Juntos com nossos colaboradores e colaboradoras e a sociedade, para reconciliar o progresso com o desenvolvimento sustentável. ENGIE, let's act together.
Now, after listening to the director of our council, we're going on to the other directors. We're going to talk about the future, and we're going to call 3 directors, my colleagues in charge of new businesses, implementation, and ESG, to bring to you guys our pipeline of renewable energies, M&A, and green hydrogen. There are lots of things, so I'd like to call Guilherme Ferrari, Director of New Businesses. After developing Ucanja and dealing with this, we can't just implement, we have to finalize, and we have 3 new challenging projects throughout the next year to be implemented simultaneously. And for this, we'd like to invite Márcio Dayan Neves, Director of Implementation, to point out what we're doing in ESG, which are the access of our license to operate. I'd like to call Luciana Barretti, Director of People and Sustainability Processes. And also like to invite Santamini to enliven our discussions. Hello, good morning once again. We're changing things. It's always good for the moderator to be in the corner so he has a perspective of the 3 main lectures. Well, we'll start here. We're in a journey of development, and then it goes on to building, and all of this is permitted by sustainability of the company. And with this, we have this panel with all 3 directors responsible for the area development. We will begin with Guilherme talking about the perspectives of our businesses and the focus in hydrogen. Guilherme, how do you see our development or perspectives for growth and this new potential of growth, which is hydrogen, which was so much talked about, and there's a strong discussion in Congress trying to set up a policy of hydrogen in the country. How do you see this? Good morning again, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here again in this event. I'd like to thank Sata, Mauricio, Taka. And I think, like Sata mentioned, we've to work in EGIE, this team spirit that we have to work together, this unity we have, ends up reflecting the results and objectives that we have reached. And like I was said here in the video, and Mauricio brought up, we have the objectives of the group in regards to the energetic transition. And Brazil has contributed a lot towards these objectives. Last year in 2022, when we did the event in EGIE, we were announcing the swap project. It's 240 mega, 6 billion capex of investment. Today we're in implementation. It's already very advanced. And we also announced last year the Susol project, which is so 750 megawatt AC, which is over 3 million HEL project. So it not only shows our capability of internal development, but also the integration we have within the company. The results that we search for, integration in all areas. We have one objective only, to make these actives to operate and operate well for 30 years or more. So the business development moment is very important for us to build this in the most robust ways, and it'll give our operation team tranquility to deal with these assets in the next few years. And also getting the part of transmission. We had a lot of success winning the Lot 5 in the last bid. This also showed our capacity, like Satamini brought up, regarding diversification. We weren't just a generator, but we also went into the transmission area since 2017. And we all know that these are very competitive bids. And throughout these years, we've been giving our teams the possibility and the capability in implementation and development and operation in all areas alongside, so that we can be adequate, and always that we can so that we can maintain our objective of bringing good results for the company. And this makes us always work together so we can foresee and mitigate all risks. I think an important point, and I believe that Marcio and Lou will bring this up, is that it's fundamental for us today, our operating license, which is health and safety. So this also starts in the development area when we do our contract. And we really make it possible for those that we hire be aligned with the best practices when it comes to health and safety. So this is a very important point for us to continue operating. Before talking about hydrogen, so we can link with something that was done this year, you guys also followed up on our activity this year, which was the M&A and the acquisition of APAS. Although we aren't very active in M&A, we're always looking for the best opportunities. So we analyze with a lot of criteria. And these assets, solar assets, which we had acquired from Atlas, and we signed up now, and we got all the signatures now, and we want to finish closing this to the end of the month of December, beginning of this January. This also showed our capacity to assess deeply assets which are in operation, and we always try to optimize our operations and extract more than's in the original business plan so that we can add value to the company. So that's not just buying something for the sake of buying. So the M&A issue is still in our radar. We're always going to be analyzing, but with a lot of criteria, a lot of thought process, and so that if it actually happens, that it adds value to the company. This is a very important point for us. And also, following up on the hydrogen issue, it's information and stream. There's a lot of people talking about this, but we still see a period to the average long term for this industry to really solidify. There's the whole chain of supply, technology certification, which is very important. There's R&D, so that the practices in Brazil be aligned with global practices. We are with our personnel and our hydrogen personnel and regulatory team working together on this so that we can align the best perspectives and creating the best opportunities. We have some opportunities and some signed memos. There are opportunities in the internal market, and also obviously looking for exports, since Brazil is a great generator of renewable energy. So we need a strong advocacy of renewable energy in the base of the constitution of green hydrogen, so that if this is accepted, the country's commercial advantages is bigger. Is that right? Is that something we have to work? Yes, we've been working on this, and I think since we have a 90% renewable energy matrix, to include the hydroelectrics in this context of green energies is fundamental, so that we can be even more competitive in the hydrogen molecule. An important thing to talk about related to future perspectives, the issue of renewables. Like we said, we had two projects which were really impactful last year, Soraya and Açu, and we've all been following up on the excess of energy offer, and this will probably be explored in the next talk, where the high production in this context, where we can somehow diminishes the development of new projects regarding this. But it's really important that at this moment we can think about the future. While we think about the future, that we prepare ourselves to have a robust pipeline when the opportune moment comes about. We still have about a 1.7 gigs project of solar energy. We have the possibility of doing some hybrid projects, but we want to go beyond this. So with our development team in renewable energies, we're always trying to analyze what's best in the market. You know, there are many projects in the market. Try to select what's the best thing out there so we can be competitive in the future. The strategy we did with a lot of success when we got the areas of Campo Largo, Santo Agostinho, and Sorowá itself. We're very assertive regarding the projects that we're buying. Transmission. We obviously have a bid now in December, but our team in Energy Brazil, we decided to not participate of the December bid because it doesn't have very significant lots. It's a smaller bid. And we defined that so that we can be better prepared for the bid of March, which the forecast is for next year. It's more a few billion of capex. They're big lots, so it allows us to see with a lot of detail to consider these projects and prepare ourselves. And the most important thing is that this preparation be in unity with the other areas so that we can bring a real business plan. I think this is the biggest worry we have. And I think this is something that Mauricio brought up, is that the credibility we have regarding our investors also comes from this. That we can show our projects and that we can deliver within the expectations that were shown in the project. So this gives us a lot of credibility, and we try to make this team, the implementation team coordinated by Marcio, gets a project which is robust, and because they always so participate of the whole development process. So I think this would be the main points. Actually, when you talk about the participation of the implementation process, in the development process, we also have the participation of operations team, development activity that integrates the whole company, because that's where our growth starts. But it's going to be brought about and through all phase of implementation and operation and all the integration that there is on the transversal areas, where there is environment, where there's finances, etc. So actually the development needs the inclusion of all these different competencies that we have within the company. But if we can, Guilherme, to summarize, in generation today we have the offer where we have to deliver, which Marcio is going to talk about, and where we're going to begin, where we have about 2 gigs implemented. We're going to focus in recomposition of our pipeline, because if we talk about a pipeline of 1.7 gigs in regards to what we are building today, it's a pipeline which it's a stock that will finish very quickly as the economy grows and as demand grows, and where you have the equilibrium between offer and demand, giving adequate signs of prices. But this doesn't stifle us from eventually, like it was in Cruzeiro, to have the possibility of doing some kind of acquisition, as long as it's value creative. So as long as it add values above the capital that we invest. So not in the next bid, but in the next opportunity in the bid of 2024, with a greater number of lots which interests us. The lots of December we see as they're small lots, unless they could be those continuous current, which is very related to the Chinese technology, and much more is it's much more of a bit of providers. And the issue of green hydrogen, we're going to have some punctual projects, but it's something to build in the long term. Would that be a good summary? Great summary. It could actually be a whole class, but it's basically that, Santo. Just to reinforce the issue of the integration of the company in itself is a very fundamental for us to be able to do all of this, like what you talked about, what I talked about, and so that we can integrate our projects, so the participation of everyone effectively in the project and the commitment of everyone. It's not only participate for the sake of it, but that everyone participates and fulfills their responsibilities, allows us to deliver robust projects for the company, and obviously this reverts to the result of the company. Yes, and Guilherme, we could say that it's a big focus that we have since the area of development is the health and safety focus when we hire, and how we hire, and how we do the engineering of construction, how we look at operation engineering and the aspect of operation which brings lesser risk to the health and safety of our collaborators. So I believe this point we can go on to Márcio and talk about implementation, how it's such a complex process involving so many people, not necessarily people who are with those who we hired for a long time. They have to grow quickly, need to train these new employees which will be working in the construction sites. And also, this always offers a lot of risk for the collaborators and generates health incidents. Márcio, what are your challenges for construction? And start talking a little bit about maybe health and safety, which is such a important value for a company and for a group. Good morning, everyone. The implementation area is responsible for the growth of the company. We always have to do this, like you said, in a responsible way. The first big pillar we have in implementation is health and safety. Like Guilherme mentioned, it's an activity in which we start mapping in the development area itself, selecting providers which we know, which we already worked with us. We have very strong prerequisites and guidelines for hiring for contracts, which we work with them before we sign contracts, and mainly for us to prepare ourselves adequately to mobilize all of this contingent of people to implement big projects. We're talking about thousands of people here. Asua has 2,500 people, so it's going to have another 1,500. Asa Branca is a transmission project which will start next year. We'll probably mobilize another 3,000 people. So the big challenge is to have good hirees, good processes, and especially prepare ourselves adequately so that these people can be apt, trained, and capacitated, and that know our projects and know our engineering process so we can implement our projects in the safest way possible. A second big pillar when we talk about implementation is the social environmental responsibility. So we go way beyond what environmental laws demand, and we really try to change people. Our communities are part of our projects, actually. So Lou is going to talk about this. I'm going to do a little spoiler about her talk. But our third pillar is financial. We have a lot of capex involved and invested in this. We have a commitment to finish the projects within the capex that was forecast, and this comes since the development project is not a number that Guilherme just pops out of his head, but this discussion, teamwork with operations, which make our projects become mature enough so that we will be able to implement them within the forecast capex without going beyond it. Another important point, which is obviously the deadline. We have the business plan to go into operation, and this affects the profitability of the project, but always without taking a hit on health and safety and quality. So we have a commitment to deliver a project which is going to operate for 30 years. I think there's a big differential that we as operators have in regards to other companies in the market, because we develop our project knowing that it needs to be reliable and operate for the next 20, 25 years. Celta said that we have more than 2 gigs under implementation, so we can say that for renewable energy and implementation, we have 2 gigs. We have 3 big projects in parallel, starting first with Santo Agostinho with 437 megawatts, which is our idea is to finish this year. Those already energized substations were concluded, and we're in the final setup of the generators. So our objective is to finish the setup this year and to get into operation of the last machines, which is going to start in 2024.
As Guilherme mentioned, this is the biggest wind project with 846 megawatts, a large number of wind turbines. So we want to make this a success, to have a suppliers that have worked with us for a long time. This is a strategy that we have been adopting to develop our suppliers, and this makes our operations predictable and ensures good results in safety and health. So far, this is a project we have more than 40%. The wind turbines will be assembled next year, and the operations will expected for 24 in the first quarter. And also we have a Susol, which is 894 megawatts project, the biggest solar project of the company, and in the group all over the world. So the numbers are huge. It's 1.6 million models, more than 2,300 inverters. So it's a giant project, and we have started to implement it, and we intend to energize it in the third quarter of 2024 and start a gradual implementation as from 2024. And now talking about transmission, this is a Gavião Real project. It will be operating in March next year. Things are doing well. And as we mentioned, we also won the Casa Branca bid. It's a 1,000 transmission line project, 5 substations, and this is a new phase of our transmission business. And in 2023, we finished the Gralha Azul operations, and with that, we were able to put in place 2.7 thousand transmission kilometers of transmission line. And this shows that our assets are well operated, and this allows us to have operational predictability for many years. Marcio, looking to the size of the project that we have, 2 gigawatts of renewable energy, and also the Asa Branca project, more than 1,000 kilometers of extension and many substations. So we ask you, how is the company prepared? What is the role of our PMO, our project management project? So how are we preparing, and how do we compare to the recent past where we had 2 big projects of transmission and 1 of generation? So what are the difficulties? So how are we prepared to face those challenges of this simultaneous project? First of all, I have to bring this discussion to the development area. So we decided not to enter these biddings of small batches because of a new planning that we have. So we have many people in resources that are allocated to many projects that we have. So we look to the following: how do we make sure that our resources are allocated to the project that we are with? So Gralha Azul, we had all our employees that are qualified for that substations. So we have many aspects involved, like substation, medium voltage, and we have those qualified professionals to do this. And we started the works of Casa Branca in order to have many activities that we will have in the future. And this allows us to have a continual work and knowledge and positive and predictable results in the future. So the synergy that we have between transmission and generation is strong. So our PMO is related to land, contracts, cost, planning, everything. We see the things as a whole, and we have a orderly growth, not at all costs. And then we see what we can deliver. So obviously, Guilherme, you want everything, but you can only develop what you can develop, right? So this makes us comfortable that we have an integration and interaction between the development and other areas, and implementation is so important and it has to be careful. And in order to do this, we need the support of the entire company. So, Luciana, talk about sustainability, which are important during the construction process, because we have an intervention on the environment and the communities in which we work. So, talk about the challenges regarding ESG in the operations and implementation in the company. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. As we mentioned here, Guilherme, Márcio, Satamini, ESG, it is a daily concern and practice here that we have here. It's a cross-section subject, interconnection, interdependency in all areas of the company. And in order to provide this ESG overview, I will provide you with some images to show you what we did in 2023 and what we will do in the future. So I will talk about some initiatives in the environment. And then Marcio said we have many legal requirements, but one characteristic that we have for implementation and operation is that we go beyond legal requirements. And this is about environment as well. So we have many actions on education and environmental conservation. So we have here some photos, and here we have education and conservation. So we have a connection program related to the community. So in 2022, we have more than 190,000 visits to schools. And this is important to raise environmental awareness, to show those communities what is the generation of energy. And we incentivize environmental protection. We also talk about fauna and flora, and also we have a RPPN, which is a reserve in the state of Minas Gerais. So we have their education and conservation, and they are focused on the fauna conservation. So they protect the wildlife in that region. So we rescue, we treat those animals and return them to the nature. We also have a forest plantations. We have 9 plantations in 8 Brazilian states. And this is beyond the reforestation requirements. So we do this in the community in order to achieve environmental conservation. And talking about biodiversity, we have a biodiversity mapping plan, and we are present in 5 of the 6 Brazilian biomes. So we know what we have to do, and from the technical knowledge that we have, we can then design the actions to conserve the biodiversity. We also have a spring plan as well. This is a project that we have to preserve those springs all over the country, more than 2,000 springs. And we also have schools, and the kids, they are informed about environmental education, and they go to those springs and they implement actions to conserve the springs in the region. So here we are working on fauna, biodiversity, forest, preservation, conservation of the environment, and also recovering the environment as a whole. But these are continued programs. These are not one-time specific programs. These are continued, and this is a continued commitment. And it is so involved in what we do. And we see that 97% of our company, of our employees, see us as a responsible company. So this is an engagement factor for our employees. And when we talk about the environment, it's impossible not to mention one of the highlights of 2023, which is the decarbonization journey. When we see all the evolution of the environmental aspects in the company, we see 3 different phases. One was on the control of emissions. We have a greenhouse effect gas inventory. It is audited by third parties. So we have been working with that since 2010 on emissions control. And as from 2015, we started to execute our decarbonization plan. And then we have the sale and the closing of some coal assets. So we decommissioned some Charqueadas, Jorge Lacerda, all of which are coal projects. And also in 2022, we sold Pampa Sul, and this is another coal project. So we finished our decarbonization plan, and we are the biggest renewable generator in Brazil. And when we finished our decarbonization plan, now we are going to scope 3, which is the engagement of our suppliers in order to act with us in order to achieve a carbon neutral economy. We also published our environment target. It was approved by the board, and they are public now. And we are working on those targets. And with that 2023 overview, when we move to 2024, we see some things that are very clear. Supplier engagement, scope 3, environmental education, and also look into biodiversity, because climate change would be the focus until now, but now biodiversity is a new frontier for us. Now we have to talk about social. And social is what touches us and motivates and engages us. We mentioned that 97% of our employees see us as an environmentally committed company. And also our consumers do so. And this is something that we are very proud of. And then we have 2 big perspectives internally, like health and safety. It's a value for us. This is so important. And we highlight all these cultural changes that are ongoing. We started back in 2022, but we continue to execute it around safety and health, not only for our employees, but also to third parties that works in our plants and our works. This is a global aspect, but this is our concern with health and safety. Is a long-term project for us because of the risks involved in our activity. We had well-structured projects, but we have improved because of the encouragement of the group to put safety and health first. Now we're trying to find the right way to work to train those people to implement those practices on a daily basis. So this involves safety visits and other aspects. And when we see the social aspect, we have all the challenge of diversity and inclusion. Mauricio talked about this in Satamini as well. And we have advanced so much in gender equality. And this is so important because we have technical companies. It's so normal to have a great number of women involved in office activities. And we have done this in a sustainable way, a female journey for those women to work in technical areas, operational areas. We provided technical courses, affirmative action, the trainee program that was successful and will be replicated this year, and also transformation of career to women. And one thing that we did in 2023 was to extend the diversity for people with disabilities. So in addition of positions, we provide qualification to those professionals within the company. So we have a level of engagement. We have a mood survey in the company, and it showed that 95% of our employees answered to this survey with an engagement level of 84%. It's a positive number, and we are working to keep this. So let's talk about external aspects. We have internal issues and also external issues, and this is so beautiful. When we look to the social aspects externally, we have an evolution of this journey. So we started focusing on the communities, getting closer to the communities. But when we have a parallel in our 25-year history, we see this initial focus on the community. And one of the things that we do are culture and sustainability centers. The first was opened in 2011 in our Passo Fundo plant. And those places, they provide digital inclusion, dance and music activities to contribute for the full training of young people and also the senior population of the communities. And it was an initial focus on this closer relationship with the community. And when we looked into this project, we felt that we needed to improve the qualification of those who wanted to promote or propose the project and those who managed this project, so NGOs and so on. And also other companies started to look for us. How can we use the incentivized resources? And then we thought, let's launch the new programs like the Qualify program. We qualified more than 6,000 people on handling and how to use fiscal incentives. And this was important because we had funds to use, but we could not find quality projects that would these are government incentives, so we have the responsibility and we have to use them. Those must be impactful projects, and those are involved in the Ministry of Education or the Culture Ministry. And this is so important because we had to set a target of social responsibility to spend 100% of our government incentivized funds. And we were able to do this because we couldn't find projects. So what must we do in order for these organizations to create projects? And when we do implementation, now we try to find local communities, the leaderships, and to qualify the leaderships. So after the implementation, then we have a qualified projects. And it is important to mention how people receive this, those communities, how they receive when we start new works in those places and we start these social projects, how do they see us? How do they receive us? I think that if anyone would be mayor candidates for these cities, we would win so easily because of the relationship that we create with these communities are so different. We are so better than the other companies. So the first thing that we do, we map the stakeholders, who are the people, their needs, what we have to work, and what we can help. And we have done this in many aspects, like health, helping the municipalities, education by refurbishing schools. We are now this literacy projects for adults. We also have a strong projects on income for community plantations, preservation of springs. And this creates at the start of the project a relationship of trust that will last for 25 years of the operations. And this is interesting because we have a continuity. The project, the need that was identified, we continue to allocate the resources with the stakeholders, and it is sustained. So we do not only go there and do the changes and then this dies. We will continue throughout the project. And looking into this journey, when we identify the needs for qualification, we continue to evolve, and our next focus would be partnerships and impact. So I remember in 2021, Satamini said, how do we do to increase our projects, the scope of our approaches that are so good? How can we do this?
And what we did at that moment was that our social projects, we packaged them as social product and started offering them to our customers and partners so that they could come along with us in this journey of amplifying the good deeds and the reach of these social actions. This is very interesting how this idea came about, because it came about from allowing our customers to capture what we were doing, because we were really proud of our project. And we saw the need of our customers to show to society that they were also participating somehow. And we show them that through buying energy from us, through the profit generated by the company in generating energy, that there was the ability to invest in social projects. So we brought our customers to these social product, and they bought energy from us, and they had the right to also to show an advertisement that they were participating in this. This didn't take this customers only to take part of the social image we allow them, but they started falling in love with the project, and they started investing their capital and their monies to these projects, and therefore we multiplied the number of projects greatly. This was huge because we started being looked out by other companies because, I want to develop a social area in my company. And then we went from 9 partnerships in 2021 to 60 partnerships in 2023. 33,000 people were benefited, more than 70 projects implemented. And this project of partnerships, Parcerias do Bem, is something that makes us really proud. And I invite all you guys to go to EGIE.com.br/Parceiros do Bem. But we don't live just of social, right? We need the structuring part for all of this, which is governance, right? So talking a little bit about governance so that we don't accelerate too much here and not take up all the time. Governance also throughout these years has been going through an evolution. We had a first phase of first steps. We had a structuring part, and then we went through acceleration, so implementing new actions. We like to bring up the new markets, and also when we go into new markets, when we do the follow-on, we are demanded by investors, to have a more adequate level of governance, and we always used these rates as EGIE and Dow Jones index to be able to guide us when it comes to governability, to governance, so we can have what's best and what is needed to our possibilities and what's demanded by the different entities. So this accelerated and helps us to reach a level of governance more and more, a higher level of governance. And we're always considering what is the gap that we have to close, and we work with this. Perfect. And also because the company is a live organism, and governance has a constant evolution to be able to follow the evolution of the company itself. And after this phase of acceleration, we need a phase of consolidation, where we still have a lot of work to do, no doubt, and we'll always need this. And we'd like to highlight that in 2023, the external auditing channel and the ethics committee and the sustainability committee to start reporting to the administration council, which are important adequations when it comes to governance. These are modernization for the governance rules on best practices internationally, best practices, and which we're adopting. Today we have a very robust level of governance, and now what we look at is what is there out there when it comes to important changes so we can go towards the best practices, and we're going to adequate as what the possibilities of organization. Well, to close my participation, when we talk about ESG, the main thing we want to talk about is evolution and integration in the company. And by the examples we brought here, I think it's clear for everyone that we can do this very well, and we're really proud of our results. But we do it well, but we don't stop there. We're always looking and searching what we can improve, because that's how we can go further. Yes, talking about going further, let's start the Q&A. Thanks so much, Guilherme, Lu, Márcio, Santa. You can all continue here. Now we're going to get questions from the audience. Hello. I have a question actually regarding to the acquisition of the project Atlas. I wanted to understand a little bit more how this project, which is already operational, and how does it insert in the company's portfolio, which has a very high expertise in development and in greenfield, like you guys talked about. There are many renewable relevant projects being developed, and I wanted to understand how this project inserts itself. And if you can talk a little bit about the premises of these projects that are being developed and built, because the challenge is to commercialize energy, the capex to develop, which is very high. And if I could ask for a favor, if you can open a little bit, what's the return rate for this kind of project? And this would help if you can. Thanks so much. The acquisition of the Atlas project, like I mentioned, the M&A part, we are always assessing the opportunities, and this was an opportunity that fit with what we wanted. The two projects which we did in the past, Sosol and Sorel, is totally focused onto the free market. So today, with the lower prices of energies and with our objective for growth, we looked in this market projects that had a profile, an adequate profile of hiring, and this was one of the points, and always respecting our objectives of financial returns. So this was an important point. And how I had mentioned previously, the project we see some possibilities and optimizations and some improvements, and we see this we can add value with improvement in performance, availability, and we have expertise which can add value. So I think this is a little bit of the motivation to acquire the Atlas project this year. In other words, good assets, possibilities of improvement, good prices, return above our capital costs, possibility of synergies with our assets, growth of our solar platform. Today we have around 250, but now with this one 550, we go to another level now, and this allows us to add a Sosol which will come with 800 megs more or less. So this was part of our growth strategy in our platform. And solar, we're going to need to have more attention. This is a technology that wasn't the most competitive one in the market so far. Today with the panel prices and the improvement of technology, double phase, etc., more of evolved triggers, it tends to be the most competitive one in the market. So it was an acquisition where we identified that it would bring the adequate return within our standards of assessment and project. So this was the idea in terms of return. We don't open this, but it's very good return, and it will be leveraged by the expansions, by re-leverages of the assets that were under leverage. So remembering we're AAA, so we have the big capability of capturing resources, which is really good. So we have different opportunities which we can aggregate and add, which will be very satisfactory. That's our thinking process. Looking forward, we're going to have lots of opportunities to consolidate in this market. It's a sub-offered market, so it's going to generate some difficulty for some players. But we imagine that M&A may be a generation of growth in the next few years in a natural form. Hopefully not for us. Guilherme Lima in Santander. I have a few questions. The first question is related to the objective that you showed in the EGIE group to go to 50 gigs in 2025 and 80 gigs in 2030. How does this communicate with the growth projections in Brazil and with the demand of energy, and if you have also different issues in the ESG, and regarding green energy, if you have the challenges of green hydrogen to implement this year, how does the government and Congress can support the feasibility of this industry in Brazil, and what does the hydric plants have to do with the implementation of green hydrogen in Brazil? Well, first, in regards to the green hydrogen sector, we have like I mentioned in my speech, we have a few projects underway, and they're under negotiation as well. But like you mentioned, it's in the beginning stages. So I think that a point that many of us brought about is the possibility of forecast. So I think that's what's going to be the trigger, so that somehow you can do investments. The issue of the hydroelectric, like we said, we already have renewable matrix. So what we see is that for the certification of green energy, hydroelectric should be considered. So what we're going to see that we're You have different entrepreneurs trying to work through this. So this will have to be aligned through the best practice in Europe and the United States. It's going to be 24/7. If you're going to have 24/7 energy, it can't just be eolic and sun energy. So hydro should be in this formulation as well. I think this is a path. I think there's an advocacy that makes sense, because like a country that is abundant in hydroelectrics, and to include this in the sources of energies, which would make hydrogen clean energy. This is fundamental, in our opinion, for us to effectively, as a country, become one of the big players of hydrogen. And another question is, you made lots of questions. Okay, how do we communicate? I think 2025, Brazil was one of the biggest contributors for us to get to 50 gigs till 2025. We had Santo Agostinho, the acquisition now of Atlas, and also Soraya and Suraçu. So we're talking about almost 2,600 megawatts. And obviously Brazil was very relevant for this. The second pace here for this decade obviously is a market issue, which makes us not be able to be a very active contributor in this moment in grid field. But like Sata said, if the market comes back, we have to be ready. So we have to have a pipeline for this. M&A is a possibility. As a creative, like we always talk about, we have to be ready for the opportunities, but it's not to grow for the sake of it, but it needs to be in a way that adds value to the company. But we're a multi-platform company. We need to remember this. And in 2016, when we made the decision to go into transmission and participated of the first bids, and we won the first one in 2017, the reason was basically of the excess of competition we had of the regulated bids with very low prices, in which we didn't see economic attractability in that segment. So how would we grow? We decided to grow in a segment that was a little bit abandoned because of the historic past, which was transmission. There were good transmission bids in 2016, 2017 with good returns, and then we went into a red ocean area with sharks everywhere, so we braked a little bit. But now with the level and stability in the transmission market, we came back and we won the last bid, about 5. Now we're looking at another bid next year. We're going to have a reasonable competition, but we're going to have compatible returns with the risk of building and implementation of transmission lines. So we have the possibilities of growing via transmission. So we won't stop growing like it happened from 2015 to 2008. When you look at our portfolio, there were basically no changes for 5-6 years, because we left in 2001, we left rationing, and then we had an excess of offer, and then we had a change in the model of the electric sector. So throughout that period there wasn't attractability, there weren't conditions, too much risk, so we didn't grow. We didn't want to go through this, so we thought, how can we, in 2016, we were talking about how can we get out of this equation and being stuck, and so we can continue growing and giving returns to our investor. So we decided to do a portfolio diversification, and if there's an excess of offers, or we're going to eventually and with good opportunities go through M&As, or invest in projects that are profitable where there is healthy competition. A competition has to be healthy. So, Sata, just to make things clear, we're not going to grow at any cost. This is the financial people saying. For Yet said I always went through the financial department, and I'm just like him. Here's got Renata Carneiro from Banco Safra. I would like to insist on the transmission part. and people, you guys went to the bid and you guys were successful, but we saw a lot of competition, and we saw that maybe this competition was going to slow down, but it wasn't the case. But more to understand this tragedy and your appetite for the next bids. I imagine you're talking about more the next year, not the December one. Some companies are already talking about partnerships, and maybe to diminish the appetite to this bid, or because they have their accounts already high, or there's too much competition for suppliers. I want you to show a little bit about this tragedy and this transmission issue for us to understand.
Most of those who are talking about partnership is because they have a compromised balance sheets. We have opportunities to grow in our balance sheets that allows us to look at it alone. So partnerships are complex. In particular, when we have strategic partners within the partnership. It is a complex situation to make decisions. It has to be well aligned. And in order to talk about competition, you are right. The previous auction was not less competitive than we thought, but it was the lowest discount in a big batch. And this shows that we go to the marginal return, the best marginal return that we can get in an auction, and always aiming to be profitable. We do not make products to be growing in our market share, but it has to be accordance with our financial discipline, and our controlling company is very demanding. It is a global player. It can invest money in Brazil. We have provided return to this investor, but if the return is not adequate, he will put these operations in other places of the world. So our concern, as Takamoto mentioned, we make investments to provide return to our investors and have the trust that we do the right thing. Was that all? One other thing that is important is the preparation for the auction. Most of them are complex, so the studies are done with many time in advance. In our engineering team, we work in advance so we can go to the auction to be prepared. And we have seen in many auctions people taking risks. Some companies were taking risks, and many of those were successful. In some auctions, they retreated because they didn't see the return. So we try to have a consistent activities, and in particular to be prepared so we can get in an adequate way in an auction for this. We have another question. Good morning, everyone. It's about the gas market. When we have the entry in the new market, the new segment, so what are the challenges and the learnings? And looking to the medium term, where do you see the best opportunities in this segment, and when ENGIE can be located in this segment? I will ask for you to wait for the next. After the coffee break, we will talk about gas, and then we will have the presentation of the tag, the evolution of the tag, and the future. And then you can have your question answered, and you also will have other questions as well. We have many people asking questions remotely, and I would like to apologize. We had a transmission problem, but the recording will be provided in the end of the event. We have many questions on our competitiveness, on the transmission auction. and also the parallel projects. So if you want to explore any points of the challenges for the next year of conducting 3 parallel projects, Marcio, if you want to talk about this. And there is a question now about our perception of the ESG ratings in the sustainability strategies of the company. I can answer that. We have changed the scale of our projects. We have been doing this gradually. And looking 10 years ago, we would do 100 megawatts, and then one of 200, and then two of 400 at the same time, and then a transmission, wind. So we are preparing ourselves to grow the implementation area of the company, to conduct more projects in parallel. And if we look at the last 2 years of the company, we have one renewable in parallel with the transmission. So we have a planning to do this, to conduct many projects in parallel. And we match our projects. So we finish civil works, and then we go to mechanical works, and then we go to operation, so we can optimize our resources. We do this. We have been industrializing, automating this process. These are robust projects, and this gives us confidence to grow, not only the number of the projects, but the size of these projects. So we are prepared. We are investing resources in automation, digitization, qualification of people throughout the years. So we are comfortable. So we are growing. The number of projects have been growing, and we are delivering them, always with quality and according to the budget and within the deadlines. And also with the adequate return, of course. Regarding the ESG ratings and how this contributes to the evolution of the company, our indexes are for us as a benchmark of good practices. We look into the questionnaires, so we make a reflection of this. How does this add value to the company? What can I do to prepare to the future? So we change what we do. We are trying to modernize the company and governance, and indexes are guiding references to us and to demonstrate our results. So we are very happy and very proud of this position in different indexes. So we do not do everything that they ask, because the market will ask more than reasonable. So we ponder and we do what makes sense to us, even because there are things that are not according to our reality. The indexes are created for the market as a whole, but there are some things that are not according to our real life. So we try to do this, and we try to meet the requirements. Some of them are really good practices, but some of them do not make sense for the company. We are getting to the end of this panel, but we'll have 1 or 2 questions now. These are the final questions now. I am Marcelo Sá from Itaú. I would ask about the market dynamic. Now we have a matching of the charges because of the loads that we are experiencing, and this may be recurring in the future. So I think how players would pricify these risks, because many solar generators would sell flat energy, and now they have a willingness to do this, because now energy, you don't have the energy where the price is low. So this is a risk that anyone could see as a relevant factor. So my question is how to price this risk? Is there any products that you can use to, block this risk? And looking forward, we see that we may have an over offer, but if we see everything that is stacking up, maybe there are some times of the day we will lack of energy. So how do you think of this entire dynamics? I am so happy with that question, and I think we are guessing everything that you want to know. In the last panel of the day, we will talk about the offer and the demand, supply and demand. We will talk about price events that we have been experiencing. Gabriel and Kelly will talk about this. So if you wait, we will try to address this topic. We will try to address this topic, exactly what you said, the risk of generators or wind or solar generators in environments of prices in different peaks and different times. So sorry, Marcelo, but we will be answered later. So I make you to stay here until the end of the event. This is Gustavo Faria of Bank of America. It's about the funding of the acquisition of this new project. And what do you expect of funding for transmission growth for renewables in the future? And also the payout of dividends, because in the last announcement, you kept the commitment of the management of 55% of payout, and now with the implementation of new projects next year, so you expect to increase this payout, or would this be more distant? Taka, can you answer this? Yes, we know that we have a commitment and a challenge. We have many projects ongoing, and this has made us to reduce the payout. And of course, we have to reach a balance of this capital structure. So there is space for this leverage, but of course, this is not infinite. So throughout the year, we will assess other alternatives that will makes us have a healthy capital structure to give return to the shareholder and also to the controlling company. So we will use many tools, and we also count with the partners, the banks, equity, debt market. There are many things ahead of us. Regarding the payout, we expect that at times of high investments, we have a reduction in the payout. So we are always taking care of this. We are trying to maximize profits, but at times like these, it is natural that you are doing investments and the payouts will be lower. And we think this is the right decision to do right now, we think. And possibly for some time we will do this. This is not an objective answer, because we don't know, because there may be new challenges, new projects. So if we have a new opportunity, we will jump into it. But yes, we are monitoring this. We want to maximize the profits distribution, but in a sustainable and responsible way. We want to keep on being AAA, and if we exceed certain limits, we can lose that rating, and this is important to us. And we have always made it clear to our investor, if we had the opportunities that would give return above of the cost effective, we would use that possibility to reduce the payouts in order to have the commitment that we have, which is 55%. And I think it is priced. When we announced this, another investor that was there because of the 100% of dividends, they left. But I think our situation is adjusted to those who want this because they want the return instead of the cash right there. So this is normal in our discourse and our statement that we have had for many years. Over the past 13 years, it may have happened 3 or 4 times, even because of a crisis or other investments that we are doing. So we do not have to go to the market to have funding. So this is an aspect that we use to keep the liquidity and the financial health of the company and to continue to grow and deliver long-term results. I want to thank you all for the questions, people here in the audience and people online. There are many questions here, so I would like to thank you, Guilherme Satamini. We now have a break now, and then we have another 2 panels to address the questions that were posed here regarding price and also gas, and we will also talk about the market. So we'll have a coffee break now. Thank you very much.
Para criar novas oportunidades, porque o crescimento depende das nossas escolhas. É preciso energia para dar o próximo passo. Renovável, segura e livre. Vamos agir juntos. Escolha a ENGIE, sua parceira no mercado livre de energia.
Centros de Cultura e Sustentabilidade. Há 10 anos, construindo um novo futuro.
Quando o centro inaugurou, a gente viu a oportunidade de ter algo a mais para fazer.
A cidade tem um antes e um depois, o antes do Centro de Cultura e o depois. E com certeza o depois é bem melhor, isso tudo graças à ENGIE. Então, muito, muito obrigada.
Seja para falar com 1, com 2, com 10, com 100 pessoas, precisa ter uma certa, assim, uma confiança, né? E eu vejo que muito disso eu adquiri aqui.
Eu tô com 76 anos feito. Estamos começando a fazer as aulas ali, já começamos de tempo, né? Mas estamos fazendo de acordeão, de teclado, violino e violão.
Eu senti esse meu desenvolvimento, né? Não só no lado artístico também, como no lado pessoal ali.
No básico, assim, o centro é um lugar de cursos. Mas você aprende muito mais que um instrumento aqui dentro, que um curso, que uma aula, que seja o que você vier fazer.
Que me mudou realmente por completo. Eu sou outra pessoa, com certeza, que sem isso aqui eu não seria.
Eu acho que não é todos os lugares que tem essa oportunidade assim, né? Mais ou menos. Assim.
O que tá fazendo? Tô aqui simulando quanto minha empresa precisa contratar de energia e quanto vai pagar por mês.
Mas agora você tá perdendo o jogo.
Perdendo? Pra quem não entra no mercado livre de energia com a ENGIE. Olha quanto eu vou economizar.
Quê?
Faz silêncio, o pessoal quer prestar atenção no jogo.
Simule e saiba como sua empresa pode economizar. ENGIE, sua parceira no mercado livre de energia.
Brasil.
A primeira empresa a ajudar a tirar a ideia do papel foi a Scala Data Centers, plataforma de data centers hiperescaláveis. Outra parceria de sucesso é entre a ENGIE e o Instituto Consulado da Mulher, da marca Consul, em que mais de 2.000 mulheres receberam ajuda.
a gente percebeu um resultado, um impacto muito importante na vida das mulheres, especialmente as mulheres de comunidades, as mulheres do bairro, as mulheres da periferia, com as quais a gente trabalha levando oportunidades de geração de renda e autonomia financeira.
Na cultura, ENGIE e Porto Nave se uniram para ampliar o horizonte de crianças, jovens e adultos em Santa Catarina.
Não movimentamos só containers, movimentamos sonhos, movimentamos vidas e entendemos que por meio de parcerias engajadas ao nosso propósito, fomentamos sociedades mais fortes e diversas.
No interior da Bahia, todos os 3.200 alunos da rede pública Umburanas receberam consultas oftalmológicas. E em Campo Largo e Centro-Sé, todos foram atendidos pela iniciativa da ENGIE com a Essilor Luxótica.
Participar de uma ação como Parcerias do Bem é muito mais do que enxergar um futuro melhor. É trabalhar e dar oportunidade para as pessoas terem um presente e uma vida melhor através da visão.
Outra união de sucesso é entre a ENGIE e o McDonald's, que dá suporte a pacientes do Hospital de Tratamento de Câncer em Florianópolis, e a ONG Instituto Pequenos Anjos. E ao lado do Grupo Pereira, o Parcerias do Bem vai promover a implantação de 5 cozinhas comunitárias no Brasil, uma das ações do programa Mulheres do Nosso Bairro. Já com a Porto Belo Cerâmica, vem promovendo inclusão com palestras para mulheres de todo o Brasil.
A energia da ENGIE e a energia das empresas que fazem parte do Parcerias do Bem transformam milhares de vidas por meio do desenvolvimento local, educação e cultura, promovendo transformação social e empoderando comunidades e parceiros.
Dezenas de empresas já acreditam no projeto e estão engajadas nessa causa.
Para combater problemas sociais complexos, só podemos fazer isso de uma forma, unindo nossas forças. Vamos fazer o bem juntos?
Já ouviu falar no Mercado Livre de Energia?
Não.
Empresas que pagam a partir de R$ 9.000 por mês em energia podem comprar de forma direta.
Direta?
Isso, nós compramos da ENGIE, líder em energia renovável no Brasil.
A sua empresa usa energia sustentável?
E mais barata.
Ah, já que você está economizando, paga uma água para nós.
Simule e saiba como sua empresa pode economizar. ENGIE, sua parceira no Mercado Livre de Energia.
A ENGIE vem com tudo para esse jogo. As linhas de transmissão são estratégicas para a companhia. Rola a bola para o lote 5. Empresas tradicionais de transmissão começam com bons lances. A tensão é grande na área, num lindo movimento de ataque. A ENGIE lidera a partida, faz uma linda jogada de craque e é gol! A ENGIE, que lance!
É isso aí! As equipes que desenvolveram o projeto foram muito assertivas. Um verdadeiro lance de craques. Agora são 1.000 quilômetros de linhas para implantar nos estados da Bahia, Minas Gerais e Espírito Santo.
Acabou! 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 A EGIE é tetra! 4º projeto de transmissão no Brasil. Agora é mãos à obra com a implantação.
Ah, tá cheio de energia, hein?
Energia quem tem é minha empresa.
Como assim?
Entrei pro Mercado Livre com a ENGIE. Agora a minha empresa usa energia sustentável e economizo na conta.
Deve dar um trabalhão pra migrar.
Moleza, o pessoal da ENGIE ajuda com tudo. É uma maravilha.
Agora eu entendi. Por isso você tá cheio de energia assim? Você não fez nada?
Vamos jogar mais uma então?
Simule e saiba como sua empresa pode economizar. ENGIE, sua parceira no Mercado Livre de Energia.
Na ENGIE, agimos para construir o mundo de baixo carbono do amanhã. Como grupo líder global em energia, operamos em 31 países e somos pioneiros da transição energética. temos o compromisso com um mundo de baixo carbono para nós, nossos clientes e para as futuras gerações. No Brasil, atuamos em geração, transmissão e comercialização de energia, transporte de gás natural e soluções energéticas e de engenharia para indústrias e cidades. Nós da ENGIE agimos. Agimos para conectar os brasileiros à energia renovável, uma energia neutra em carbono. Nós da ENGIE criamos soluções inovadoras, digitais, seguras e pioneiras, que descarbonizam e garantem a energia do amanhã. Nós da ENGIE aceleramos nossos esforços coletivos para alcançar uma economia neutra em carbono. Nós da ENGIE agimos juntos, com nossos fornecedores e clientes para o uso responsável de recursos naturais. Juntos com nossos colaboradores e colaboradoras e a sociedade, para reconciliar o progresso com o desenvolvimento sustentável. ENGIE, let's act together.
Nossa história começou em 1998. A privatização da GeraSul nos trouxe um parque gerador baseado nas hidrelétricas de Salto Osório, Salto Santiago e Passo Fundo, e nas termoelétricas Jorge Lacerda, Charqueadas e Alegrete. No ano 2000, com a conclusão das obras da usina Itá, o ativo entra em operação e nossa capacidade instalada alcança 4.849 megawatts. No ano seguinte, iniciamos a operação da termoelétrica William Arjona, incluindo gás natural como combustível de geração. Em 2002, a implantação das usinas Canabrava e Machadinho termina e a operação dos ativos agrega mais energia renovável no sistema interligado nacional. Neste ano também inovamos com a operação remota da usina Passo Fundo a partir da usina Itá. Em 2003, a biomassa ingressa no nosso portfólio, a partir da operação da usina de cogeração Lages, e a usina Canabrava passa a ser operada remotamente a partir de Salto Santiago. Entre os anos de 2004 e 2007, iniciamos e concluímos a primeira etapa de modernização da usina Salto Osório. Em 2008, incorporamos a usina Ponte de Pedra e as PCHs José Gelásio e Rondonópolis. Em 10 anos de atuação, ampliamos nossa capacidade em 66%. No ano seguinte, iniciamos a operação de São Salvador e iniciamos a geração de energia eólica, com o ingresso dos parques Pedra do Sal e Beberibe. Em 2010, foi a vez da biomassa da cana fazer parte da nossa operação, com a usina Ibitiúva. Também iniciamos a operação da central hidrelétrica Areia Branca. A grandiosidade da usina Estreito faz parte da ENGIE desde 2011, quando iniciamos a sua operação comercial. Já a usina Passo Fundo iniciou seu processo de modernização em 2013. No mesmo ano, iniciamos a operação comercial do conjunto eólico Trairi, que marca nosso crescimento em geração eólica e o início do encerramento das operações com combustíveis fósseis, com a desativação da usina Alegrete. Em 2014, a biomassa ganha força com a operação comercial da usina Ferrari e Salto Santiago recebe os primeiros investimentos em modernização. Em seguida, concluímos a modernização de Passo Fundo e o centro de operação do sistema inicia o despacho centralizado de geração de energia. Em 2016, mais um passo foi dado rumo à descarbonização do portfólio, com o descomissionamento da usina Charqueadas. Também iniciamos o processo de digitalização da operação, com a inauguração do Centro de Operação da Geração e a operação remota de Ponte de Pedra e as PCHs. Em 2017, a nossa primeira usina solar de grande porte iniciou a operação comercial. Também vencemos o leilão que agregou as usinas Jaguara e Miranda ao nosso complexo gerador. Ainda deu tempo de concluir a modernização de Salto Santiago. As eólicas do Conjunto Eólico Campo Largo iniciaram a operação comercial em 2018. Em 20 anos de atuação, mais que dobramos nossa capacidade de geração. Em 2019 foi a vez do Conjunto Eólico Umburanas iniciar a geração de energia, assim como a usina termoelétrica Pampa Sul, cuja implantação durou 5 anos. Neste ano, iniciamos a segunda fase de modernização de Salto Osório. Em 2021, a energização das transmissoras Gralha Azul e Novo Estado marca o ingresso da ENGIE Brasil Energia na operação de sistemas de transmissão. A conclusão da venda do complexo Jorge Lacerda acelera nossa jornada de descarbonização. Em 2022, absorvemos as usinas fotovoltaicas Paracatu e Floresta, encorpando nossa base fotovoltaica. Chegamos em 2023. Neste ano, concluímos a venda de Pampa Sul e nos tornamos a maior companhia privada com geração 100% renovável do Brasil. E iniciamos a modernização de Jaguara e Miranda. Além disso, obtivemos a concessão de um novo sistema de transmissão, o projeto Asa Branca, e iniciamos a implantação do Conjunto Eólico Serra do Assuruá e da usina fotovoltaica Açul Sol. Parabéns, equipes da Diretoria de Operação. São 25 anos de eficiência operacional e referência de atuação no setor elétrico brasileiro.
Hello, we're back to our next blog regarding EGIE. We're going to talk to a question that has we're going to talk about a question that our investors ask a lot about. It's a market that is rather akin to the electric sector. There are many synergies. A market that's opening that evolved to a very interesting legislation with the gas bill. There's a lot to do still. And we hope that with more defined rules, the market will define through more agents with opening of the market. And for this, we called Quintana to talk about the TAG regulatory market. And Eduardo Santamin is going to do the mediation and do an interaction. We're going to talk a little bit about with Ovidio, and he's going to talk about the gas market and to address many of the questions we've had that we've been asked about during our road shows, our conferences, and many were done here today. Ovidio, how's the gas market? What's our perspectives? What's our tag? You want the pass or the video? Good morning, everyone. We're going to begin here just to talk a little bit. We're going to start with the game here where we talk about we play with the tag logo. So I start saying that tag is we are helping the group and translate it to Portuguese. So don't worry, the gas market is doing well. And I'm going to highlight to you guys 4 axes of growth to add value. I'm going to try to be agile with our presentation to allow for questions later on. I think the first thing for us to highlight is when we see here the tag structure, the 4,500 kilometers being 600 in the Amazon region and the rest in the coast. You see that's a structure of gas pipelines that connects many cities and states and connects the offer to the system. So we have 14 points of receiving and 90 points of delivery and compression points that does the movement of this gas throughout the system. And this is very important to make the market dynamic. And this was reinforced by the gas bill in 2021. And we acquired the asset in 2019 under legislation, or previous legislation. And one of the big highlights that we can bring about this new gas bill is in regards to the change of the authorization deadline. We got an asset and the authorization finished around 39 or 41, being 30 or 30 years from the previous gas bill. Now we have a perpetual license. Besides this, the law also reinforced the juridical safety of our legacy contracts, which are still happening, and also register the outlets and the inputs that we needed. And so most of this bill is regarding the transportation sector, and so it brings our infrastructure and the movement of the gas in evidence. And we've been advancing a lot in this sense. The second point of the axis of creation of value is the internalization of our process. It was a year for administrative independence, 3 years to replace Transpetro, which was a previous operator. So as M&A with $9 billion, so, adding both operations. But the DNA of the industrial player, which wants to operate their assets and sees value in this, and we have a company of the engine group, which does the group field operation. And we have all these operations at different states when we set up a modern center of operations and we monitor 4,500 kilometers of the sector. It's a invisible operation, but operates all days of the year, and this is what assures our comfort, to be able to have the control of our assets. So basically, this is the eye of the owner that makes sure that everything continues working. So we're assuring the security and integrity of the assets, and it's important for us to keep this under control. And this was part of the business plan, wasn't? Yes, the internalization of the process with Transpetro was to create value to the investors. Yes, this was also one of our requisitions, because in the bid asked for 10 years to do the transfer of the assets, and we said no, it's in the maximum 3, and we filled out, and we did what we wanted with this challenge. So this was very good for our investors. And knowing the operation of the pipeline and of its assets, we took 3 years to structure the operation. Yes, from the Center of Supervision and Control, where you see an image there, and with the highlight is not just an operational of the asset, but we have a modern room of commercial dealing, which was pioneered in Brazil to open the market and the interaction with the multiple actors, which we're going to bring to you guys. This is different from the electric sector. We don't have the commercial dealings that we need for this. Yes, it is not from a merit order. It is a digital revolution we're doing here. Also, one of the pillars to bring make the market more dynamic. So the operation of the whole complexity of the pipelines, we try to leave this to the background and leave it very easy for the user to be able to hire the capacity and access the gas. So we have multiple operations, and I'm going to highlight them here in the next few slides, and we'll go back to this point so we can evolve. A third pillar, which is an axis of generation of value, and here specifically we have to support, the strong support of the investors, is regarding our capital structure. We recently doing the refinancing of operation of our debt in dollar, and in an anticipated way we extended the deadline and we improved the cost of this debt, and we had more flexibility for new financings for the capex. It was a very well done process that was structured, and also we had a demand beyond our expectation, and we had a very good proposition of banks, even of international banks that weren't operating in Brazil for a long time and started operating again. So this believing in the sector, in this segment, was very important. And here's Santa also. I'd like to leave you, please comment that. Well, basically, Ovidio, what happened is the change of the acquisition that we needed to do. We needed resources. So this acquisition was done leverage with a whole union of banks and linked to the contracts that were dollarized in TAGI, and with local transits, with the contracts indexed in NL, and they had deadlines of till June of 27. So it was with a better knowledge of assets, demonstration of the capacity of generation of value that TAG demonstrated in the spirit. And we showed the financiers that it made sense for us to do a refinancing and change the characteristic of the financing that was done for acquisition. And we did this for a longer term with a different payment profile. And this came to generate a lot of value now when we look at the asset, yes, and maintaining the safety regarding the currency exchange variation, and also the indexer is the dollar itself, the SPPI. So we maintain our safety in regards to the exchange variabilities. So the debt is still netted that way structurally. And the fourth axis I wanted to highlight to you guys has to do with this issue of opening of the market and the protagonism of TAG in this process to attract new agents for the usage of this infrastructure. This fear here, which makes us real proud. These three spheres, which is a dynamic process. This picture here, which I believe is from June 6th, we show the three stages of the agents in this platform, of this digital platform of offer of capacity in the market. This is an offer that is shared with the other two transporters in the system, ATBS and TBG, where the agents can hire the system, logistic systems, in the transport logistic sphere. So from left to right, we see the three stages. I always like doing the analogy as if it was an international trip, where in the first stage to do an international trip, you need to get your passport. It's non-binding, and so the sphere of the ride, you do the registration to go into the platform. It's non-binding, and then is for you to get a visa where you sign the terms and general conditions so that you can use the system. And to the center, effectively, is the agents that are hiring today the transportation systems in TAG. So we go from unique system agent, which was Petrobras, which was the only one to use the transportation system directly, and now we're proud to now have 14 economic groups, 21 companies using, and I believe that even in this moment we can have even more, because this is a picture from June 6th. So what can we celebrate with this? And there's some public data which you probably accessed. When we did this process of opening, we contributed to reduce in comparably to the prices in the Northeast, which was 80% lower than the Southwest, prices, because for a moment, for a reason that's obvious, because if you have the option of putting producers and users and gas users together and maximize the opportunities for them to be together, this generates competition in the fundamental element in this chain, which is the energy through natural gas. So we try to maximize the opportunity of these people, of these different players being together. And this is the rates uses the international HPPI, and we have the concentration of the market is 4 times inferior to the national average. These are evidences of the important improvements that TAG has been doing to give access to the carriers. We left from a carrier in 2021. In the beginning of 2021 to have 21 carriers in 2023, and of 4 contracts that we have with the binding contracts, we already signed 77 this year. And we can also say that the participation of the revenue of the new market in TAG's revenue, which we call the integrated network, which is in the coast, already 22%, and this is an image of the beginning of the year. This is already 30% of the revenue from the new market. And this replaces partially the contract with Petrobras, right? In the sense where Petrobras availabilized capacity, where they had 100% of the contract, so that you could bring these new contracts and make the gas market actually happen. Is that right? Yes. It's a shared usage of the infrastructure. So first, in this issue, the usage of if our revenue was 100% paid by Petrobras, now the sharing makes that the new market pays for a part and Petrobras pays for another part. This is very important, because the dynamics of this takes us to the trigger for new healthy investments with the opening of the market. So you could have the same revenue if you just were laid back, just working with Petrobras, but that's not our motivation. Our motivation is to create a gas market and create permanency in those, and this is a multiplayer market, right? And I think we are doing this right. Yes, exactly. I'd like to highlight that we don't work just to giving access or maximizing opportunities or creating ways to create access to different opportunities, but also to plan the needed infrastructure that is needed in this market. We have 3 major directives for new investments, what we call here the typology, where it's categorized in 3 modalities. We call it access connection, and we have the examples here of the terminal of LNG in Sergipe, where we feebleize new agents to be able to arrive to the main system. And the investment in this connection, we leverage with bilateral long-term contracts. The agents with interest in connecting, we assess the needed investment for that specific connection, and we establish a bilateral contract where we feebleize this investment. Second way to invest is a more systemic way, where we're talking about the network optimization. I'm going to show you guys a picture in the next slide. A new compression system in the south of Bahia, and it allows more movement of gas between the regions of northeast and southeast, and more possibilities of exchange between the agents, so they can buy through a plethora of options. And this is a more systemic way of doing it, and the location is by the regulatory base of assets. And the third one is more structuring, which is of expansion, more robust investment. And here we have this stone, which would be a reinforcement of the network of gas in the northeast. And this is more available for some anchor contracts where we can increment or doing demand tests with the markets. These are the 3 possibilities. Today we already have concrete situations in the first ones, correct? Exactly. We already have concrete situations. I highlighted 5 projects here, including some already listed in the new park itself. Gas Forward 2, which in Ceará, where we're doing extension of 84 kilometers, and we're looking at the continuity of this pipeline to the southern region. We already have more than 690 direct jobs with this, and we have the terminal in Sergipe, which I talked about, and the connection of this terminal. It's important to highlight where we plan these pipelines, these gas pipelines, bidirectionally. So not only this that's connected in Sergipe to TAG and be available to the Brazilian market here in São Paulo, you guys can buy the gas in Sergipe, yes, and Electron also can get from eolic energy from the northeast, and the electric park that installed and can be developed can also rely on the gas of the region, so a bi-directional pipeline. So you have an outlet of the system in a partnership with distributor in Bahia. We're building a pipeline to the west of Bahia, so we now do a new connection for distribution route to support the market there. So we have 3 projects which are being built. And on the right side, I like to highlight 2 projects in development. The compression station Itajuípe in the south of Bahia. Like I said, it's a stretch of pipeline with 1,000 kilometers, which we need more compression. The duct in itself has a technical capacity to take more gas, but we need to put more strength to the system so these exchanges happen. And the connection with the terminal of LNG, which is existing in Rio de Janeiro, which is the Porto do Açu, which is 45 kilometers, but in this bidirectional concept, and it works so that the gas can come imported through the Açu and support the national system, but also the support to the important industrial system that's been built in Açu.
If we can compare with the previous presentation, when we see the number of agents in the market, in the existing infrastructure, you can say that this is an exchange of customers and increasing the number of customers, but not a significant increase in the remuneration of TAG, because of the revenues that Petrobras allows you to capture. But in these projects, you see an increase in the volume of business, turnover, and EBITDA. Yes, because with new investments, so we walk on investment. New investments will provide new revenues. So with new infrastructure, you can grow your business in an organic way. Exactly. And in order to complete my presentation and give answers, space for questions, now I want to highlight some opportunities and challenges. When we talk about maximizing the value of the structure, it is a space for decarbonization. We have some industries that have done this to reduce the volume of gas, diversification of agents, diversification of a hub for the commercialization of molecules, the optimization of the logistic costs. So if you have more movement in the same infrastructure, it is a positive sign for the infrastructure to connect other sources of supply, to connect methane, which is a potential here in Brazil. It is also available for renewable gas. Biomethane is 100% compatible, and it can also be blended with natural gas. The digital journey to improve the business environment, removal of some bottlenecks in the system, but these are actually restrictions. And when you have a bottleneck, is that the market wants to do more than the structure provides. And also the storage of natural gas underground, because the geological structures of Brazil is consistent with the TAG area. So we are looking into projects to do this. And also the challenges. One of the virtue of Brazil, and also a problem because we have many options, and when you have many options, it's difficult to plan. We must have an integrated vision of the chain value. So we have to do the investments to make it possible. So we see these opportunities as good opportunities. Coordination of investments between the links of the production chain. So we can have a leap of improvement of the infrastructure, and also some tax barriers for regulation to give more liquidity to transactions. I believe that we are experiencing some of advancements in regulation, but we must take care that there are systemic and individual opportunities, and we must identify those for the gas market because it is a more complex environment, because we have a regulator in the environment in the federal level and the state level as well. So it's difficult to harmonize this gas and electric sectors, and gas is an ally for us. We had a question that was asked in the previous panel, so do you want to ask the question again, or is it answered? That was the question that was asked in the first panel, right? I want to have a more strategic vision of the group. In terms of the group, can you advance? You know that there is gas storage. So as a group for the medium-term vision, can you advance in other directions? Because if we see ENGIE Brazil, it was a big decision, but it's not representative. So do you want to increase the representativeness of the sector or the company in the sector as a whole? In the case of a TAG, which we have a stake with other companies of the group, it is a regulated activity. You will act in the grants of pipelines. Also, probably in storage, but we cannot operate in the sale of energy. And sale of energy is where we see the integration of gas with ENGIE Brazil. So we have a gas seller at the company. It is not so hot, that market, but it will be growing in the next years. The number of agencies is growing, the gas producers, distributors of gas. When they are operating on those contracts will have to be adjusted between the agents. So we have the possibility to have a market to adjust the quantities. It's a more medium or long-term market. It is probable that we will have a seller that will be authorized, but it is not operating because the market does not have a significant amount. But this is a possibility for ENGIE Brazil Energy to explore this type of market. Do you have any comments? No, it is correct. So TAG is a regulated carrier, but the law provides for the possibility of the shareholder and TAG working on other infrastructure areas like a storage or even terminals. So you have other possibilities. Other activities in the chain can be performed. I think this is important, and it is made stronger if we have a more dynamic market. If I may, in the last results call, you could do this through the holding company, maybe. The infrastructure part is performed by TAG. Investment in gas infrastructure, it is performed by the company that we have for that purpose. It is performed by TAG. So when you say through the holding, we have a stake there in the asset, but it's a different activity, different from the activity that we have in the electric sector, where we are the main players. So TAG is a co-controlled company by our controlling company. About gas storage, it is important to mention that gas storage is a market activity. It's not a system activity. And this imposes some questions when you make investments. And this is welcome because it improves the link between gas and electric. It is according to the regulations, right? So storage is not regulated, so we have to look into the transport of gas. So they develop the carrier, develop products for those who transport the gas. So you have to carry the gas through the network. And also the carrier can be a customer of the system in order to balance the system. And within the scope of the shareholder, you can participate in the activity. So you can invest through infrastructure or otherwise. So there are many synergies that can be explored in this market, and we see this activity with good eyes. And I think we'll have a good surprise because there are many projects being discussed. So when you talk about the global aspects of ENGIE, ENGIE is so strong in the transport of gas. We have tens of hundreds of kilometers in France, for example. And ENGIE knows that gas is part of the energy transition. So that's what we call electron and molecule transition. And you hear us talking about this. So it's not possible to electrify everything and to stop consuming gas in some industry. And gas will continue to be important. Now we have another question by Vladimir now, right? Now, Vladimir. Thank you for the opportunity. My first question is about GAS 4. When will GAS 4 to start to be ready to operate GAS 4 2? And we will solve the bottleneck that we have there, because this is a complicated area and there are some problems to increase the supply in that region. And the second question is about regulatory issues. We know that the companies have revenues that are insured by Petrobras for a certain period of time, but after that, how will the asset will be remunerated? It will be depreciation or any other issues that can be involved. The first about GAS 4, this 84 kilometer will be completed in 2024. This project was commenced by Petrobras in the past. So when you resume, there are some adjustments to be made. And it will solve part, it will give some room to that region, but will not solve the bottleneck as a whole. We also have a strong nature of operational security, because the current section goes through a dense population area. So there is a second phase of the GAS 4 2, and that part will give more capacity for the region. And this is part, but the potential is the size of these works. And about the revenues, we have a schedule of contracts that will be due from 23 to 26, and these revenues are predetermined, and these are legal contracts. So now we have new investments that are being made, and they will be rolled out in the regulatory asset base. So when you expire a legacy contract, you assess how many of the assets have not been repaid. So this is one of the inputs. So the result of what was not repaid in the previous cycle, so we have new investments that are not considered, and then your future investment plan. And this is the parts of the investments that will be remunerated by the WACC and the operational expenses. So we have a international benchmark about this, and we have seen OLP following those references. So this is a business, this is a predictable business regarding the revenues that will be regarding the next tariff cycle. And of course, we will notice a reduction in the total turnover as a function of this new revision of the tariffs. So we will have an event in late 2025, and obviously we will have a methodology that is different from the previous one. The previous one was the one that made the project feasible. Maybe it would have a greater remuneration than the original one, but now we may have an adjustment of the turnover regarding the contracts. In the Northeast grid will expire in 2025. It is approximately 25% of the revenues. So that portion of the asset will be within the mechanism. What are the investments that are considered in the future investment plan? So this is the dynamic of the volume of the repayment and the volume of new investments. So yes, is it priced? Yes, it is priced in the business plan. And we may have a natural adjustment that is made as a function of the regulation. It reminds us of how the distributor of the electric sector is. It does not have the same coverage, but it is similar. We are running out of time now. We have a question from Giova. I have a question about the public call for the purchase of gas of TAG. It is 4.5 million cubic meters per day. So why do you need to buy this volume of gas? I understand that this is an operational questions. I don't know if it has changed because you have more customers. Because the volume that you have now is less than the amount that you can potentially contract. So I want to understand why you have a huge volume being contracted. Yes, we buy and purchase gas at TAG. It is for operational purposes. So we have the compression gas. So this is gas that we use. And we also have the flexibility gas, which is intended for balancing the system. So if you are agent operating, so you have a primary responsibility to put the gas and remove the gas to have balance on the system. So when you have an unbalanced event, the carrier has to ensure the safety of the fund. So you are putting too much gas and you are not removing gas. So the risk may appear in the system. So we must balance, and this is why we have to purchase gas. And also the cancellation of the traffic, so we can inject gas and we can also serve the market. Sometimes you have to inject gas in other areas in order to allow the market to receive all the services. So this means that you must necessarily will not buy that volume of gas, but so we increase the operational gain in order to have a more flexibility, and we are reviewing, considering the offerings of our suppliers to meet the market demand. Another question about the bid from January 1st and December 24. You can also supply for a shorter period. For example, there are players that can provide from June until December, and others will provide the entire year. So how do you schedule this? So what are the priorities? It's an excellent question, but I will summarize. In order to select is the cost effectiveness of the market. So we will always try to stack the best solution. We can use the gas for compression. We can buy 250 or 300 per day. So if you have someone supplying 10,000 of biomethane, so we want to provide the best cost effectiveness solution for the company and for the market. So we can have different periods of time because we see that there are new players. So if you are from January to December, we are removing important players from the market.
We're going to have time now for one more question before we change the subject. It's a quick question. In the bilateral question, in the connection investments, which is a bilateral contract, are these public contracts? Can we have information about this contract? Or if not, how can we have an idea of what is the return of this connection, of these investments and connections? The bilateral one is not public, but in regards to although it's a bilateral instrument, the operator considers the walk and the conditions. So the reference walk, which was public, has been used by NP until it does a new review, is a 7.25%, which was used also in the PDG case. As a modeler, he probably wants to understand what EBITDA that he was going to be able to consider to see what's the effect and the contribution for ENGIE Brazil Energy. Well, anyway, I already gave him a tip. Thank you for the participation. Thank you for the class and the interaction, Satamini. Thank you, everyone. Satamini, you can stay, please. Okay, I'll stay. Now we'll go on to our third block. We're going to talk a little bit about our commercial strategy, main challenges, and possibilities with the open market and with the opening of the market in energy. Gabriel Luma. And also I'd like to invite Mark Skeller, Director of Regulation and Market, which is in the context to talk about the regulatory issues, what's happening in Brasilia. If this is possible, to know what's happening in Brasilia. Is this possible, Keller? Sorry, his microphone is not on. Couldn't understand his question, his answer. Keller, we need to turn on the microphone. Keller said that I anticipated what he was going to say. Exactly. I'll talk about this later. Our dynamic here, we'll start talking first about the market, our last movements. The first the good part, right? Our business is a business that's a large regulated, right? It has a very active regulation agency. So we're always trying to contribute for the best possible regulation. So it's always a worry. And I think that everyone that considers this market knows this. But we're going to leave this to the end because it's such a rich subject and it's such a hot topic right now, or else he will contaminate our discussions. But let's talk about commercial vision, what we've been doing for a while now, Gabriel. We've been preparing the market for this moment, which also the regulation allows, with the opening of the market from January 24th. We have all the high tension app to be bought in the free market. So let's talk a little bit about the market vision. So I mean, this is going to be the main part of what I'm going to say about the opening of the market. But I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about our commercial strategy of Brazil Energy. And like you guys know, we always try to sell our portfolio gradually. So year by year, we go selling a little bit more each year to mitigate any exposition risk to prices. Another big pillar in our strategy is focus in the free market, all our commercial activity now, which is in the direct. And my team is to focus our energy or things that we're going to buy to do directly with the free market to support our consumers. It's important to highlight also that although we might have a long-term strategy, we always look and always do adjustments in the strategy because of considering what we're seeing in the scenario and future scenarios and future perspectives. Just to give you guys an example, on the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, we were already seeing that the prices were going to go down a bit in the market. So what we did in 2022, we accelerated our rhythm of sales. And so since we accelerated the pace, we were able to add more value or avoid selling in a price that was going to effectively go down and reduce, like we saw now in 2023 and in 2023, since we saw that because the price went down, not just along in that year itself, but it's going to impact future years. We adapted our strategy and reduces a little bit this sales pace, because first thing we saw is that it's well hired, and in reducing, we try not to sell so much for the long term, because we imagine that this price is going to recover sometime, and we want to have room to capture opportunities when this price recovers. So we want to have energy to capture this price, to capture value when the price increases. So we have a long term for graduative hiring. This diminishes our exposition to prices. Our average price is stable and has greater resilience in movements of up and down. And we have a commercial activity directed by the portfolio management, because it's important for us to talk about this and say how we're structured. So Keller takes care of markets of regulation also, but of portfolio management. So he defines prices and volume. And Gabriel is a salesperson. So he's going to execute the strategy of the short-term strategy of the portfolio. And then in these movements, he's going to the market quickly to sell the energy if we think there's going to be a drop down on the prices, like what happened in 2021, 2022. So there's important segregation of function. Who does the price and defines the type of sale is a portfolio, and the salespeople executes, and he has to do margins on top of the prices that we defined as minimum prices. There's a synergy, very close synergy of both areas. We can't do the volume, the demand of volume with prices together. Another important pillar of our strategy is to have a diversified portfolio of sales. When I say this, not just in economic sectors and segments, but also when it comes to size of customers, and also in all the different regions of the country itself. Today we have customers all throughout Brazil, and also aligned with our portfolio of generation, where we have a big presence in the south, but also an expressive presence in the northeast of the country. I like to say that we have been growing throughout the years, not only our participation in ACL, but we have 70% of our commercial in the ACL, but we've been growing in number of customers. A great part of our growth throughout this year is a reflex of the opening of the market. These customers are already deciding to migrate today, although the effective migration will only happen from 2024 and on. But this whole strategy has made it so that we can have a very good, be very well hired till 26 and 27 at least, but still with space to capture opportunities, like I said, if the prices scenario changes. And also to have to be representative in our revenue of ACL, which is about 40%, which shows the importance of this segment for ENGIE Brazil Energy. And the main pillar of our strategy in the last few years has been this issue of the market opening, all the preparation we did for the opening of the market, which starts in January 2024. Like you all know, we've been preparing with action since 2018. We've had this opportunity in other events like this to talk about this, and now we've had the opportunity to place in the streets everything that we've implemented in the last few years. So throughout this year, our commercial team did a very strong work in the in the retail to capture these customers which want to migrate, and say that this opening brings to the market about 106,000 new customers less today because many have migrated already. According to the CCE, about 10,000 customers will migrate next year, so they already begun the process with CCE through their retail commercial sectors. And beyond these 106,000, there's a contingent, or there's a whole fan of that has not migrated yet that will be able to access with all these actions that we've been doing. And we'd like to remind you also that the market is open with a lot of tension. There's so many challenges to be overcome. We have Keller in the regulation area has helped us a lot with this. This is one of the pillars. And there are barriers that we have to overcome, like regarding the adequation to measurement, and there's a lot of difference in processes and requisitions depending on the distributor. This has been very negative in our vision for the market itself. You have situations where the customer wants to migrate. He's already on the captive today. He has to migrate. Sometimes he has to invest 200 or 100,000 to migrate. But that doesn't make sense, or else if it's like that, he's going to stay where he is. Why not implement the same measuring system he has now? So this doesn't make the migration process feasible. You can't invest 200,000 to have an economy or savings that's not going to reach that. And this has been seen by the associations of energy distributors, and this is very important, which the regulator is considering, and it's very important with the exercise and the market power. And this is very serious because I think we're not being vocal enough regarding this, and we believe that the regulators and the government need to consider this, and I believe this is a situation to take to CAGE. So this is worrisome, the lack of autonomy in the situation. Being a natural monopoly, he can't have advantage with his competitors in other markets. We know that tech can't operate in markets where it uses his market power. So legislation is clear. It's clear and needs to respect it, but legislation is also clear regarding distributors, and I think there we have a line that is being crossed that the regular and government need to be aware of, so that the competition in the market be fair. So I think it's important for us to bring this point up. To give you a practical point, we have sometimes the customer is going to announce his contract in the distributor, and the next moment he receives a mail from the commercializing, making them an offer as well. So how did that transference of information happen, right? So we've seen this already, and this is documented fact, okay? And this doesn't happen just with us. This happens with many sales companies that deal with energy, and we're already handling this, but we need a little bit more attention from this by the part of the regulation agencies and the government, and they need to take up the responsibility to make the market be respected. But these barriers haven't stopped us from growing, so it's important to highlight this. And this is where I want to go a little bit deeper regarding all we've been doing, and remember what we've been doing since 2018, like I said, which have allowed us to grow in this segment, in the retail segment. So going a little bit deeper, I'd like to remind that we had the creation of our retail commercializing center, and we started working in the retail. So all these customers that are migrating to our retail commercialing, so the agent is not the client line. It's not a player in the CCE. So the first point that we did in regards to this change process was to segment and change our commercial structure and segment our customer accounts. So what we separated the corporate and the business customers from below 1 meg and above, and then we segment the corporate customers by economic sector. Why did we do this? Because our commercial supporters, each sales table supports a different sector of economic sector, so that we could focus, so that this team could understand deeply the needs of the sector, the needs of the customers of the sector, and so that we could also generate more proximity of our systems of our supporters with each one of our customers in the sectors. The other point was to do a sales structure specifically for the business segment, for the smaller customer, and also for this retail customer that's migrating now. Now we have not only a sales structure, but also pre-sales of prospection and of management of sales channels, which these are points which I'm going to bring about in my speech also. So this is a big change. Second point, within this new structure, focus to the opening market, the digitalization is very strong, with the focus of us simplifying and automizing as much as possible the journey of the smaller customer within the company. So there are a series of actions of digitalization and processes, from sales to support to pre-sales, with two main focuses: to improve the commercial efficiency in this smaller size market, and also to support the segment with a cost to serve and a cost to acquire, which should be adequate, because or else I inflate my structure too much, inflate the cost, but maybe I wouldn't have the return I'd have after I digitalize this journey. So the other point is to bring up new products. Today we have a team specifically for development of new products. So they're looking at the market, they're talking to our sales team to be able to keep in touch with what's happening, what the customers are demanding, so we can think new products and adapt the characteristics of our products that we already have in our portfolio. So to just give you an example, our product in retail, which we call the Economiza, it started as a product which in our vision would be the traditional product in the market, which is a product with an assured economy related to the captive market when the customer migrates. And throughout the process, we understood that there was some customers that they didn't want to stay with an assured economy, but they wanted to negotiate a price, the final price. And then we adapted, and today Economiza is not just one product, it's a family of products. And so now we have this Economiza, which was the first one, which gives this performance, which is a controlled assurance. So, but now we have this one which we specify the guarantees, where I specify the products for him, but in the market we leave it volatile.
The original Economiza, which is a discount of the distributor tariff. So you have the Mercado Livre products like Happiness Forever, so the customer will be happy forever because he's paying less, but now it's a different segment. And also we have a green product, which are critical for our journey to support our customer in their decarbonization journeys. So we have the EGIE3, which is a renewable energy, so it is of a specific plant. Also carbon credits and IRX. We are one of the top players in the issue of IRX in Brazil. We have a perspective with all the discussion on regulation of the carbon market in Brazil. We have a perspective that this type of product will have more value in the future with that regulation. So I think we are well prepared to capture that value that will be created. Fourth, new sales channels. We were one of the first of creating digital sales because we have the NG Place, our platform. We have a short and long-term products and green products there, a growing number of users in the platform. It is not only an e-commerce, but it's a service, customer service channel. It is a portal for the customer to have all information of their business with us. And we also can exchange information through the platform. So sometimes they have to provide information throughout the term of the contract, and they can do this through the platform. Another channel, which is the most important one in the opening of the market context, in addition to our indirect sales channel, we also have an indirect channel with our partners. It is well structured and sustainable channel. We have more than 20 partners all over Brazil, and they are strategically located. So we see where we have highest tariffs and the regions where we have a potential to migrate. So we have those business partners operating there. So we have this distribution throughout the country, and we can reach smaller customers. And we thought in the past this could be too digital, but we noticed actually that this is not the case, because those customers, they are small, but they have a contract of 3 or 5 years. They are small businesses, but so they want to sit down with you. They want to understand what is the free market. So I must have someone there, and this is performed by the business partner. So they have their own networks of salesperson people. And the last point that I want to stress about opening of the market is marketing. We thought in the past that we would need to give more visibility to our brand in this segment of the smallest, low volume companies. And we would achieve an additional number of customers intending to migrate. So we decided to associate this increase in the marketing campaign with a sports platform, and then we naturally came up with the tennis. The tennis is sponsored in France, and we have been sponsoring the new Open Tennis tournament here in Brazil. And tennis is so connected with B2B. We had former tennis players like Meligeni and André Kfouri came here. So naturally, we have this connection with tennis. So we have different types of outlets like radio, TV, with this connection with the sport of tennis. And this has brought significant results to have leads with customers. And this is so important to us because we do not have access to the base of customers. We have to find out where they are. So I have to generate these leads, qualify those leads. And for that purpose, we are using platforms, technologies, AI. We are crossing data so we can identify where those customers are, so we can direct them to our business team and our partners to make the sales. So we advocate the open energy concept. What you have in the financial market, which is open banking, we have something in the electric sector as well. And now I want to talk about the future now in the business. We have two big aspects. One is the scale up of our business, the opening of the high voltage, and we will work on that in the coming years. And we also must understand the opening of the low voltage. It will take place at some point, and it makes sense to us. So you have home, you have a commercial, and you have industrial. And we must understand what makes sense to us. If I go to low voltage, will it add value to us? And for that purpose, we have been making a benchmarking analysis with other markets like the US or even France. So we are trying to learn and trying to anticipate this new decision, whether or not we are embarking on this journey. So when we look to the potential of a regulation that about the opening of a low voltage for 2028, it is expected. But why are we looking to this right now? First, because we must prepare ourselves. And low voltage is actually opening. It is growing, but it's only for specific sectors, and it is taking a part of the market of the distributors. So we see this as a possible solution to increase the competitiveness of the market and to add benefits to those consumers with lower tariffs. Because if we think of that situation of the increasing cost of distribution is a negative, a vicious circle. So we understand that the opening of the low voltage market will have to be accelerated at some point. We advocate for that because you cannot open the market to only one player. You have to open to all of them. It generates distortions in the economy. So we are accelerating this process, and we understand that the solution of the regulator and the rational government will be the opening of the low voltage market as well. So now this will have an impact of our regulatory and price market, and I think this DD will be part of it. Good afternoon, everyone. They left regulation last now because we will not have so many questions about this. So I will talk about regulation, but I want to talk a little about system, how we have evolved last time we talked. I want to mention three pillars here for us to talk. So we talked about discipline here today, and Gabriel talked about strategy, and we were here yesterday, and now we are celebrating the 25 years of this company listed in the stock exchange. So we hope we will be here for so many years ahead of us. And our vision is a long-term vision. So it is important to bear that in mind when we talk about regulation. And we must know the environment that we are building. You know that there are ups and downs, what the media says, but we know that we have had some advancements in the market and also regulation, and I want to provide you with that context. We have a lot to do, but I think we are on the right path, and I'll try to explain it. I will talk about system first. This year we had a gross demand of energy growing more than expected, and I think the main reason is that we had a expected GDP of less than 1%, and now we are going to 3%. So we multiplied the growth, the expected growth of the economy. So as a consequence, the demand for energy will increase as well. Yeah, it used to be 1.6%, and we may close the demands of 4.6%. So this is good news. And this contribution comes from homeowners. And we also have the heat wave, the cooling of the systems and home systems. So when you Google on trends and you see that people are trying to buy air conditioners, it is an exponential increase. So it is something that will grow. And when we do these presentations like this one, we remember the potential growth of our consumption per capita. So we have a lot of potential. It is happening. It can improve, but it is happening. We have had these heat waves. This is a characteristic of the El Nino, and it will stay until mid-2024, and it's something for the next months. And there is another trend that we have experienced is the government. We are in the new administration, we have a distribution of income, increase of energy, and it has happened in the first terms of President Lula. So this contributes to this perspective. And we also had a surprise. And there was a question about it, which is the peak cost, the peak price in the end of the day, which is the peak hours. So we have this conjuncture of low energy prices. So we do not need to dispatch to the thermal plants. And we are supplying the entire demand with hydropower and renewable resources, and a little thermal, but reduced. And in this situation, because of this growth in demand, and also the growth in the end charge, we had many factors. There was a peak load growing, and there were times of low production of renewable energy. This is not an intermittent production, so there is a standard deviation in this renewable energy, and this is more about wind. Because solar, you do not have sun at 8 o'clock, so it will be zero generation. So this is about wind. So if we do not have thermal at that time, so this resulted in the peak price. At median times, we do not need thermal, but there are times when solar, where we stop producing, we have to connect something else. And there is also unavailability of hydropower because of the season. In the Northeast, there is no water now. So you have to turn on the thermal plants, and this has increased the price. And it caught the market by surprise, and risk causes volatility. And then we have burdens and bonuses. And bonuses will come to those who have discipline. And here at ENGIE, we price the risk and peak price since 2020. And since 2020, I hear here are people from the commercial side. Yes, we are pricing the risk. We collect the risk spread in each sale that we make in order to supply that risk. And we also have analysis on consumer profile. This is not the same price for every consumer. So those consumers who consume at peak hours, they have to pay more than those who consume flat all over the period. So the pricing is performed adequately. And when we started to talk about the hourly prices since 2017, our concern, and Gabriel reminded us about it. So they said, stop to sell energy to those guys of a business hour, and this made us to make this flat hourly price. And the question was about the generators. So we also have many consumers that are contracting and has contracted the flat modulation hour by hour. So I deliver flat hour by hour, but they do not have a flat consumption. So the end of the consumption is also subject to that risk. So discipline, strategy, and long-term view. And we are assessing the profile of the consumer. And when we have a good profile, we provide discounts as well. And we do this, and this is important for us and for the consumer. And this is about isonomy. We also price all the projects. We take into consideration the risk of production. What is the risk of the wind or the solar project? And I'm talking about hourly profile. And we have a risk spread or even a discount when that profile will add up or will not add up to our profile. So we may analyze a project. You can take a solar project. They have an intrinsic value, but that asset, when it is incorporated with a wind or other, it is so we can specify the risk and also the sale and the production of our projects. So this is the discipline, this is the strategy. We have been using this for a long time. And this gives us the possibility at time like this that these peak times were positive to us. They are sporadic, they are specific, they are difficult to predict, but they are positive. And we also have a secondary effect, and this is important because the risk brought a perception to the market of volatility. So this has increased the prices in the long term. If we take 2026, for instance, so we started this year with a low price. Now the price is 90 reais in the middle of the year, and now it's higher. We are 115, and the trend is to go up. Because this is the risk that occurred now in the end of the year, in my opinion, it is a structural risk if we have a good energy scenario. With no need to use thermal plants. So maybe this can be repeated. If we migrate to a hydropower that is bad, this risk will go away. It's one on another, but I think it is structurally present. And this is a risk that our competitors will try to specify.
Now, this is very natural of the market, and it's not going to justify now to put thermal energy in the basis, which can be some of the thesis that we can start seeing. No. We're here with a balance system, and these systems are used and turned on and connected when you have an additional dimension. And today the park is dimension for this. I believe that this is a fundamental system. We're ready to the planning of the sector. They're ready, thermoelectric park to support this characteristic of usage when necessary. So finally, what happened positive in the system this year was the export of energy vented to renewable. So we started in January a new regulation, a pretty important regulation directly from ENGIE as well, to have this model of export. What would be energy not going through our turbines and going through we started turbining energy and exporting to our neighbors, Argentina and Uruguay. And this aggregated an important value to MRE, but can also be much bigger. So to show you some numbers, what we exported of vented to renewable energy, of what could be transformed into production and generation, was 9% of the EVT we transformed into production, exported to our neighbors. If we had done this since the beginning of the year, it would have been 30%. So there's space still for us to maximize. And I'm going to talk more about this in the end of the block regarding regulation. I wanted to advance a little bit about regulation and going into the flexible position. There's this whole repercussion of the NP, which is even difficult for us to comment. We don't know if it's going to exist or not, when it's going to exist, and what are the restrictions that's going to be along with it. But I believe that there was a very positive evolution of the awareness and transparency of the cost of the subsidies in Brazilian electrical sector. We've been talking about this for over a year, about 2 years, and how this weighs on the Brazil cost, and the paradox of the cheap energy, and point to the customer is expensive because you have the subsidies and the different prices, which are not needed anymore. Because I'm going to talk specifically about EGD, because our accounts, our bills, and base of the public information, the subsidies is in this year will probably close in 10 billion reais. The subsidy for EGD, direct and indirect, are another 10 billion reais, and which were built in a couple of years. So when we look at the subsidies of the tax and centralized eolic, this was built in the last 10 years. So when you look, EGD is the same subsidy of the same dimension that was constituted in 2 years of distributed energy. And more than this, I'm going to ask them to compliment, and you know this much better than I do, but the subsidy has its role. And in the renewable sources, it fulfilled its role and just leaves a cost, and that impacts on those with a lower income. So today you grows with a panel and Chinese inverter. So you're generating jobs and growth in China, and generating demand of energy here with this, which replaces industries, which brings jobs into big operation and big solar farms and hydroelectric, etc. So you're creating a lack of incentive and leaving the consumers with a bill, and to consumers with less income, because those who don't install a solar system in their own housings is those that don't have those who don't have resources, so they have to pay the cost of the distributor. So is the opposite of a Robin Hood. I think a structural vision of subsidy should be not to extend what you already have, not create new ones. There's always these threats of creating new ones, and also to revert or review some of that already exist. So the point of reverting is the AGD, the cost of 10 billion is already there, but we should make it not grow anymore. So transition that was done in the bill that goes all the way to 2029 is very slow. what we've been defending is that we should keep the subsidy of what's already there, but avoiding new projects or new subsidies. The GDE subsidies is the worst one because it benefits those who have more money and leaves the bill to those who have a lower income. And it's a vicious cycle because it creates incentive for migration, and those that are marginally capable or go to the GED market and leave the part that they used to pay for the rest. And this makes the rate goes up, creates a marginal incentive for those that wasn't going to go. So it's a vicious cycle of the worst possible nature. So now the subsidy of the wire, so we heard these news of the new subsidy. Our opinion is that totally unnecessary. It's not necessary today because it was necessary in the past because it developed in national industry, but now it's not needed anymore. And more than that, the border of growth between these different sources are the Northeast region. So those that defend that the end of the subsidy of the wire is going to bring less growth for the Northeast is not true, because we're talking about how many billions reais of new investment are going to be put in the Northeast, in Asoroa and Assusol. So these are decisions already determined with a scenario of end of subsidy, of transition to the end of subsidy. So I believe is not necessary for this to be extended. This subsidy would grow 1 billion per year. Now it's going to create 2 billion. Now this now it just becomes Brazil cost, and it's just totally unnecessary. And finally, besides us having this cost in the end energy, which are the subsidies, I just talked about GDE and wire, but we have other ones which I'm not going to bring up now. But bring this is 100 reais megawatt hour in average, because for high tension is 80 and for low is 40. And besides this, we have another subsidy, which the Institute of Self-Production. I'm not talking about self-production with emphasis with investment and equity, but is the production where there's no reflection from the investment. So this leaves an even higher bill for who's going to pay. So if we elevated today the barrier for the concession of the benefit by a corporation keeping the benefits of those who generally invested, we have many partners that invested in consortium. So we're not talking about reverting any of that. We're saying not having concession of benefits for a corporation for those who don't invest. We're saying that from this and forward, it will remove the imbalance of those who pay, and those will bring up benefit of 15% for consumers of low tension. So the government is really worried about the taxing effects. Two paths we would suggest is generated distribution LGDs to stop the subsidies, and obviously the wire subsidy as well, and to solve the self-production for corporation, because we believe it doesn't add any value and is just a way to lose money. So this part of the subsidy, what we can think about regulation in the long term, besides rationalization, what we could think is any way that we can incentivize the growth of demand. So Brazil has a good problem right now, which is the renewable energy that many countries want. We have it. So it brings this unbalance to our favor because it was based in subsidy and not in competition. But it's a good problem for us. First, avoiding the subsidies continuation and fostering growth by demand. So programs that bring incentive, whether they're fiscal or others, security investments, they're all welcome. Not only for hydrogen, like we said, but necessarily for hydrogen is important to have, but for all sorts of policies for power source, bringing new demands to Brazil. And then I get to the point Gabriel brought up, which is we already have a sector and a maturity pretty reasonable to open the market fully without subsidy, avoiding that who sells to low tension use discounts. We already have maturity for this, but it's already open, but it's only open for a niche, for distributed energy part. So I think more than maturity, it's important for us to open the low tension market. Even, like Gabriel said, we're going to see how it's going to be our ascension in the low tension market. But even if it isn't for business, that it brings an advance for the market because it allows competition and avoids this expansion subsidies of the distributed energy. For next year, we'll have reached the last step of the high tension. So we're already looking at smaller customers, but in high tension. In my opinion, time will make a pressure, including from the consumer, which are on the other side of the fence, in the low tension market. They're going to make pressure for the opening of the market. So it's important that we get the customers of low tension migrating and saving in their electricity usage, and those that can't migrate or want to do the same. But at least for the commerce and opening of B2B, it's important for us to think about that there's maturity for this. So the full opening of the low tension is going to allow this to happen. Do you want to comment? No, just a detail, a demonstration that of what we're living now is a bad allocation of resources in the economy, is that you have an increase in the offer in EGD, which is bigger than demand. What does that show? That it is using market of another in a non-competitive way. If it's a more expensive energy because of the scale, it's showing that we're throwing money away. And if it was to create an industry of panels, an industry of inverters, or a brutal generation of jobs here in Brazil, then that might even make sense. But that's not the case. So this has to be reassessed, and perhaps a way to a more reasonable, rational way to do this process, to make this cannibalization process to finish, is to open the market for low tension and allow competition for the source, and then it's going to show that it's non-competitive, and then we're going to have the adjustment of the market. Perfect sector to advance here. I think another subject we advance a lot in the maturity level in the sector is the need to value the services of systems serviced by the hydroelectrics. There's already an awareness regarding this need by the regular and by the ministry, in my opinion. I think there's a space for this regulation to follow through, whether it's through the 6014 or the other mark that the government was going to propose, or the NL on their services. I think the bid of potency and capacity would allow the hydro to participate is very mature and is a basic case for the next bid. But we need to advance in the system. But I think this event, this high-end event here, shows the value of having flexibility in the system. And then the low-hanging fruit of what we can give of a bigger and immediate step to value the hydroelectrics is for us to advance in the export of hydroelectric energy. I already said that we've had this year, but I think there's more space for us to advance doing a marine export throughout the whole year, including on the dry season. There are studies that shows that in this moment, and it's possible for us to do this without increasing in the risk to Brazil, and this takes to a leadership of Brazil in the electric energy transition in Latin America. So it's important for Brazil to exert its leadership in the energy transition in Latin America. This brings gain to the government because of this political capital. This brings to the company itself, but it brings gain, and not only to the cities, right, because it's distribution of royalties, but it brings a direct benefit and indirect benefit for the consumer. Because 30% of the electric production belongs to the consumer. So if we brought, this could have happened in the last year. So there's a potential of an extra 6 billion of revenue. And so 30% of that is the consumer. So our study shows that doesn't aggregate fragility to the system. So I believe there's space for us to evolve. It's again gain. The government, generator, and consumer. Everyone wins. The world wins. I think this is something that we can take for next week in COP28. I think we should even prepare a paper and have our representatives in COP to take this. Because we are diminishing emissions in South America with this. That's it. Maybe just one element. When we talked about subsidies and we talked about valuing valorization of the hydroelectric, I think we can connect these two subjects like this. The electricity generation concessionaires, when they got to concessions, they were in an environment where you had the hydrothermal system, and hydro worked in the base, and the thermal systems did the complementation of the load. So what happened is you had an inherent risk to the activity, which is a hydrological risk, and which represented and characterized itself by the GSF. So as you started introducing energy, new technologies via subsidies, you started impacting the economic value of the concession. So today, when you look at 2021, 2023, and you have a GSF in an order of 25%, you see that the action of subsidizing new technology, I'm not saying it was wrong, it was right for you to diversify sources, but it was an action that wasn't competitive. It's not a normal action of the market. So we also feel that there's space for us to talk, and it makes sense for us to have a financial recompensation of the hydroelectric concessions in the near future. Today, we structurally can't sell 100% of the energy. It was not forecast to sell because, in a certain effect, because of the subsidies. So maybe the way for us to do this financially is through the recomposition with an extension of the concessions, like we saw happening with GIRFON, which is in nature very similar, which was a moving of the generation of the hydroelectrics because of generation outside of merit. So this is another point that we've been bringing up. We're with the association of the electric association, which has been strengthened by the hiring of a new president, Marizete, a new CEO. So we want to generate, add value, and recover the economic equation of electric concessions.
Thank you, Gabriel, Keller, Sata. So now we are open to questions. Good morning, I'm Guilherme Lima from Santander. One question is about the reserve auction. You could participate with 2 plants. I want to understand if you have take a look in the capex that would be necessary to participate in that auction of the installed power of those plants. How much could you add to the system? We have seen some companies showing 30 or 40% being added as available power. And one of the plants, I think, is part of the quota system. So No, too many questions you have there. So first, you want to know the capacity of development, whether we have a CAPEX, and another thing is about the capacity that we'll be offering and the specific situation of Jaguara plant. So first question, Guilherme, he's working on that project, and we are working on this project since the beginning of the year. So the engineering team, we had projects, we are talking to suppliers, and this takes time. So yes, we are working on it, but there is a regulatory issue behind it, because the auction is not related to hydropower. No, the auction is not designed yet. And we provide for the participation with hydropower as well. And after the capacity auction, which is the case that is applicable to the Santiago team, that's it. We are designing this. We were not able to participate in the last auction, but in the case of the auction Jaguara, I think the proper way will be the quota contract. We are discussing with the regulator how the investment is made in the regulated revenues. So Jaguara would be by quota, and we also are assessing the CAPEX, the conditions of the auction. We are reviewing and assessing the situation. Thank you. Daniel from the Safra Bank. You talked about the dynamic of the price resumption because of this peak power. So how are you thinking about the resumption of contracts? The new contracts will have higher prices, or I also want to know about the Açu in Assuruá, if you have 100% of the contracts for these two projects. And also, if I may understand how to bypass those systemic risks related to the export of hydropower exports during the dry season. And I think the problem is this. Regarding the contracts, yes, consumers, because most of the big consumers are advised by energy advisors, or they have their own structures when they are bigger companies. So it is natural to seek the best time to engage energy. So when the price is lower, you go to the market. On the other hand, there is a concern, and this is the time that reflects this. So when they see that the price starts to go up, there is a run to engage energy. So we have seen an increase in terms of this process. Consumers are trying to engage energy because of this increase in the prices that occurred because of the peak price, but has also impacted the future price when we look into A1, A2, and A3. A little bit, but has increased. Regarding Assuruá and Açu contracts, yes, we have parts of the energy engaged for some years, but we still have a long-term energy to capture the opportunities that will certainly come up when the prices will recover. It is within our portfolio. If you look into our documents, in our investor relations documents, In our balance of energy, you can see Açu and Suruá, they are represented there. But one important thing to bear in mind is that when we make these projects, we provided for a decrease in price. So remember when we said when we sold energy from 2022, when we saw that the prices in 2021 had a tendency to fall, we knew that there would be an over offering price, and then you would have a lower prices for 2, 3, 4 years, and then the price would pick up again. And in particular, because of the end of the subsidies, in a change in the rules now, we also cause a unbalancing of the economic decision. So this is another factor that is critical and would prevent a regulatory changes at this time, changes in the laws that would create an imbalance in the agents. We talked about this last year. We were in the heat of the 2021 crisis when we had signs that the over-offering would increase the risk of low prices. So we accelerated sales, we sold, and then when the prices started to drop, we decelerated. So I think this is a dynamic strategy. So we have a portfolio strategy. This is why we look into our strategy. So this project is completely sold for 2024 and 25 in a reasonable production level. And we also have energy to sell from 2027, but it is more related to portfolio grants. When we have a ground, we think the ground will be there forever. When we have a cap, we think that there will be cap forever. But this is not the case. And I repeat, hydrology is the main driver of Brazil. We have full reservoirs now. But when we talk about 2027, maybe we can have our high prices in 2027. Maybe we can have a positive, or maybe we can have a negative impact, because we may have to repurchase if we don't sell for a higher price. So if I take 2026 as an example, it is closer. We have 1/3 of chances of having higher prices because of the conjuncture. And I said here earlier, if I have a sustainable growth in the charge and associated with bad hydrology, bad rainfall, so our reservoirs will be lower. I cannot dismiss this. It is less probable. It is probable to have this oversized system, but I think it is all about discipline. So let's sell in advance. They buy like 3, 4, 5 years, and we will try to sell in the long term as well. And we will have a stability of income. And now about the exports. It's so simple to answer. It's a technical question, but it's simple from a technical point of view. So if we have a maximize the transmission line with Uruguay and Argentina, if we were to maximize from the first minute, we would export it 30%. So there is a lot of exports. So what is it? What is the assurance for the next summer? If we export it from the first to the last minute, I will throw water away because I cannot store water. How can I store? I create a waiting volume, so I would export before I start to produce, and I would have an increased percentage, and what I would throw away in the summer, I can store without a thermal energy. So instead of using 30%, I would take a 40 and even 50%. So I would export from May when the wet season ends. I would open a space for future rain. And this is a marginal gain from the physical point of view, because the stock of money, which is the MRE, would accrue is more than sufficient. It's more than 3% to pay the thermal plants to refill the reservoirs. We'll take the risk, the obligation, and we will deliver as it was not stored with that risk. So I accrued the money to ensure that this does not happen. And the revenue for this is 6 billion for the consumer, with zero physical risk and marginal economic risk. The question is the willingness to do this and maturity for this to happen. We had good conversations with the operator of the system, and they understood this. I think the operator would be an ally in this proposal, because there is this assurance by the MRE to refill the reservoir. We have another question, the last one. This is Felipe from Itaú. I have two questions. The first would be about the capacity auction. I want to know if you have any assessment of the actual volume that could be contracted, if you believe that the government will adopt this discussion of technology neutrality. And the second question is about political issues. We saw the attempt to subvert the location signal and the benefit of the TUJ. So I want to know, in the interactions with the government, if you have a political support to continue with the agenda. About the capacity auction, there is a desire by the government to be technology neutral, sorry. So we have I don't know if we have the systematics for this to happen in the auction, and I know that there will be other hydropower may participate. We don't know yet, but this is something that is being elaborated. Regarding the political issue, I will point my point of view. I mentioned that we have advanced in the government's awareness of what subsidy means in the Brazil cost. And this is my opinion, that there is a good awareness by the regulator, but also in the Ministry of Mines and Energy. So on what depends on the Ministry of Energy. If there are other political conditions for the subsidy, I think the risk will be mitigated, but there are other political issues that are beyond the ministry. So about the ministry, they are aware of giving less subsidy, and even with the willingness to decrease it. But there are other political issues that we cannot foresee. But depend on the part of the Ministry of Energy. If it happens, it will be with restrictions with limited damage. I am an eternal optimist. So I think, and we are working for that to happen. So we have an awareness that these measures that are being requested market reserves or benefits, they are harmful to the system as a whole. And I think the society is emerging against this. We see FASE, which is the association of all electric class associations, in the letter by then a letter against this subsidies. So all the associations are questioning this potential presidential decree that would extend this benefit. So we also have the statement by the entire society regarding the PDL 365. And I think we have a collective awareness, and these are not definitive issues. If it was final from a political perspective, it was technically possible to defend, it would have had happened. So I am optimistic that the government and the Congress, in particular the Congress and the leaders of the Congress and the Senate, they will be aware of this, that the actions that are harmful to the society will be then against themselves. So I think they will make the right decision. So we are coming to the end of this panel. I would like to thank you all for participating. A round of applause to you. And now the closing message. I would call Satamini to say. So I would like to thank you all, everybody here and also online. It's a pleasure to share this environment with you. This is so important to say what we think about the future of the company, ESG aspects, and to see your questions, answer your questions, and being transparent and clear. So I want to thank you all for the questions, and we must work hard in order to make the next year a good year for the sector, and we can deliver efficiency and results. Please, I ask everybody to fill out the satisfaction survey. And you can also do this online. And we would like to apologize for the technical issues in the beginning of the presentation. And this presentation will be available on the website so you can watch again. I think that's all. Any further messages? So we are closing now the transmission. Thank you all. And for those who are here, we will ask you to stay a little longer to take a picture. Thank you all for attending this event. Thank you.
As linhas que te desenham, a EGIE vem renovar. Só vem no sol, no ar. As linhas que te desenham, a EGIE veio trazer boas energias pra você. a EGIE vem renovar. Só vem no sol, no ar, nas linhas que se desenham. A EGIE veio trazer boas energias pra você. Igrejas, escolas e hospitais. E além desenvolver, respeitando a fauna e a flora,